Try to imagine all life as you know it stopping instantaneously and every molecule in your body exploding at the speed of light.
Total protonic reversal.
Protonic reversal.
Protonic Reversal with your host, Conan Neutron. Broadcasting from a secret underground lair in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
A gigantic middle finger to everything that is rock about music, rock and roll, and corporate power.
The thing is, though, if you don't laugh, you're going to go on a killing spree with sharpened nails.
Confidence of a hero or a fool. I wasn't exactly certain which.
Could not be more professional.
It means something. It means something. You know, that's my take on it. What's yours?
Protonic Reversal!
That's like a science thing, right?
Indeed it is. It is a science thing. It is a science place. It is a scientific fact that we are all up in your face. It is time once again for the one, the only Protonic Reversal. Welcome to it. Tonight's special episode 428, third of the week for me in my personal timeline. I'm gonna throw that out there. Working hard, making up for lost time, where the time was lost was my band being on tour, so it's not really lost the time, but lost time in the podcast world. Very excited for this. Coming up shortly, Ralph from Rye Coalition is coming on. It's gonna be awesome. There's Rye Coalition news, everybody, which is I was as surprised as anybody in a positive way. That's a positive surprise as opposed to all the rest of these surprises, which are like, oh, this is mind-numbingly horrible. But before we do that, before we talk to Ralph and talk about this awesome new Rye Coalition release, welcome to Conan Neutron's Protonic Reversal. I'm your host, Conan Neutron. I'm a rock and roll lifer that's been touring and recording for 25 years, most known for the band Conan Neutron, The Secret Friends. Music is a huge part of my life, and I use the format of this very long-running podcast to talk about music with musicians whose work I enjoy and respect, but who may not be household names. This is episode 428. Now, this is your first time listening to the show. Archives of it are available for free. No ads, no sponsors. No kidding. At protonicreversal.com. However, if you want to support the show and get episodes sooner, $1 a month at patreon.com/protonicreversal will achieve that goal. And if you like the show or even just a single episode, please feel free to like, subscribe on your platform of choice, share it around the internet, or even leave a review. All that helps people discover the show. It beats back the almighty algorithmic overlords. And this is a darn nice thing to do. So there you go. It's the year was 2025. Why am I doing this announcer voice? I don't know. But there's a new Rye Coalition release. And it is a Shellac cover, a Wingwalker, and a Drive Like Jehu cover of Bullet Train to Vegas. Both two of the favorite songs by two of my favorite dudes by two of my favorite bands. So if these fellows were marketing it directly to me, boy, did they hit pay dirt. I'm sure they weren't. But any which way you slice it, let's talk to one of the Hard Luck Five right now. Ralph, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, man. Thanks, Conan. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, fucking talk about something that's like directly like mainlined for my sensibilities. Like it was like, wait, a Shellac and a Jehu cover? Crazy. And of course, Rick and Steve both being like just top shelf human beings that unfortunately are no longer with us. How the hell did this come together? I know informally, it's been so long, I don't remember it was on the show, but when I had Dave on the show that, you guys do stuff now and again. Like it's not like a close the book forever, kind of situation. But like, how did this come to pass? Paid in Full is the name of the release, by the way.
Yeah. So first off, let me say I'm a big fan of the show, big fan of you.
Awesome. Thanks, dude. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. That started only about a year ago for me when I started listening to podcasts. So a little bit of a Luddite here. But I started having these really long drives to work.
Oh, dude, that'll do it, man. That will do it.
Yeah, and so I started listening to the podcast pretty regularly, and love the guests, like love your interviewing style. So really happy to be here. So yeah, the way it came together, I was daydreaming one day. This is probably about October 2015, 4, somewhere in that month. So I was daydreaming, and now and again I do think of Steve, and I was having some memories about him. And it was only a year apart that Rick and Steve passed.
I guess it was. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it was about not to the date, but pretty close to a year apart.
Yeah.
And the first time around with Rick, we were just, we're all on a group chat and text, and we were just like, fuck, man. Like this, it was so sad.
It's a hit. And the only thing I can I don't mean to interrupt you, but the only thing I would compare it to and compare it to at the time is like when Bowie died. Where just like people came out of the woodwork like, fuck, Froberg. And it's like, oh, I didn't even know you were a fan. and everybody in a band was just like, flags at half mast that day.
Absolutely.
And repeated by Steve's death. Like, in a way, it's like, it didn't seem possible that he could die, but apparently he did, crazy. So anyway, yeah, please continue. But I just want to one-up that.
Yeah, I mean, and then Steve's death a year later was a complete shock, and I hit so many, like Rick's passing. It just, I think, hit what I'm going to refer to as like our community. I don't know how else to sort of phrase it.
No, I mean, like it sounds goof-ass, right? Because we're not used to speaking about it in that way. Because first of all, generationally. Secondly, from like the world of punk rock, like fuck out of here, community. What are you talking about? But it is a community, right? And it is a culture, and it is it should be something that be respected.
Yeah,
even
absolutely.
especially by us.
Right.
Even if no one else will. Yeah. But you're right. It hit our world, right? It hit our world really hard.
Yeah. And again, we were communicating quite a bit and shared a significant amount of time with Steve. I mean, we recorded with him 3 times. Shellac, due to Steve, took us out on the road for like a stint with them.
Yeah.
And before we had met him, this was when we were starting the band. So like 94.
Right.
And we wanted him to record our first album, which is a whole story around that and how that didn't come to be. But he was so. I don't want to get us off on a tangent here, but
you've heard the show. It's all tangents, bro.
Yeah.
It's just one large tangent for 11 years.
Great
tangents. Yeah, I was gonna say, but they're not boring. There's something to be said for a cul-de-sac. Oh, it's very homey.
Yeah. So
sorry, go ahead, please.
So I called him on a landline, obviously, because that's what you did back then, and spoke to him on the phone. And I think we were like trying to record the album in like 3 days. And we're going to do the whole thing start to finish in 3 days. Do it at CRC. And he called me at what we booked the dates, called at some point and said, I'm sorry, I'm stuck in London. And he was doing the Bush record at the time.
Was that called Razor Blade Suitcase? Was that?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I've heard it all the way through, frankly, but whatever.
No, nor have I.
Yeah.
And
looks good on you, right?
Yeah. and so he said, look, let me see what I could do. Let me see if I could get them to pay for your session. I really feel bad about this. And then it just sort of fizzled out. And then many years later, 2001, we recorded On Top with him.
Yeah.
And so ever since the beginning of the band, we wanted to record with him. The first time we ever heard his recordings, I was just like, what the fuck?
Well, sure. It's like, because if you're talking about a rock band, like a rock band, and it doesn't get much better than that.
No.
Right? I mean, it's like if your band is a kick-ass band that sounds good in a room, it will sound astounding if Steve Albini recorded it. That was the
right.
thing.
And we never felt like we translated well on record. It was just one of those things. Like we always felt like we were a live band, and I think Steve got as close as one was ever going to get to what we sounded like live.
And that's hard too, especially when a band is like this, like a ferocious performing band such as yourselves. Like it's, you can't always get it over the speakers. You can't feel the sweat. Sometimes that's a blessing. Let me tell you, those Stooges bootlegs. I was like, I don't know what Impintago was on the club floor when this was being recorded, but Impintago, everybody, thank you. So, but I think that like all the stuff he did with you was all killer. Like it's sounds pretty good for drums. Like pretty good.
Yeah,
pretty good. Yeah, it's getting good.
Like, I mean, and we hit it off after like the first 2 days because we were, to be completely honest, we were intimidated that first day. We couldn't get shit. We were getting
Steve Albini. Yeah,
that's right. And we were getting sounds, and like then we tried to run through some songs, and we were just shit in the bed. And we were going to stay at Electrical. We couldn't stay at Electrical because Kim Deal was staying at Electrical. She was staying with him at the time. He's like, hey, no big deal. He was like, oh, we'll put you up at a hotel. Yeah. And then, she's going to go and you guys come and stay in the studio to totally be fine. But we came back the next day and wanted to have like this powwow with him. Like we wanted to talk it all out. And he was like, look, man, this is all going to be fine. Just relax. This is all going to be fine. You're thinking way too much about this.
Right. We're making records. We're not splitting the atom here.
Right. We were so, I think, anxious that first day.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, we just really sort of hit it off. Humor-wise, just being able to hang. And, we lived there for 7 days. And he recorded us. It was his one day off that year. His one day off was his birthday.
Right.
And he recorded us because we weren't finished. And like,
what a guy.
Like talk about like the generosity in that. And like, some dude just rolling up and being like, here's a wad of cash. Like,
yeah.
Here we go. Like
don't ask us how we got it. Yeah.
Yeah. we borrowed a lot of money for that record.
Yeah.
For the time. And just so kind, so generous. Really one of the most intelligent and kind people I've met in my time in music, for sure.
Yeah, definitely unique individual, an asset to humanity. Say what you will, right? It's just like none. We shall not see his likes again. I fear.
No. He'd probably hate that.
Oh, he would be so annoyed by all of this. 100%.
Yeah, I know.
He's like, shut the fuck up, guys.
Yeah. He's a legend. He's a music legend, and he would hate that.
Yeah.
It's
like when he got a shout out of the Grammys. I was like, oh my God, he would despise this. He would have some pithy thing to say that none of us would think of and be like, yep, nailed him.
Yeah, but his directness, his candor, his wit, like all of that came through, and he was the genuine article, that's for sure.
Well, and it seems very much a game respect game situation because the whole Rye sensibility is coming from a both very clever place, but also a very irreverent sort of place, like celebrating everything that is great about rock and roll, but also like that this is kind of ridiculous at the same time. And you can do that without it being like jokey, without it being like, peace and love in my heart through the jokey bands. But it's like this because you have a sense of humor. And look at Sparks, right? Similar principle,
Yeah. I think a lot of people, sort of got it and other people just sort of didn't, and like our hearts were very true in terms of like, the music was all business. And I think our influences have certainly come through along the way. But I still think at the end of the day, like we sounded like Rye, our sound evolved. Like, how does that not happen in being a band for 13 years?
Yeah, one would imagine. it would change a little bit,
right?
Hopefully, unless you're the Ramones and you're purposely trying not to get better at guitar, like Johnny.
Right. Or like you have the formula like AC/DC, and like you don't need to change it. It's just it's fucking perfect as it is, and
just
that's
keep
what
doing
it's going to be. Right.
Exactly.
No.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean we were a band for quite some time. We were active for 13 years.
Well, and for the audio listeners, I decided to wear my Carp shirt today specifically because I know I was talking to you, because that's how Rye came to my attention, is through the split with Carp, who at the time was one of my favorite bands. And I mean, and that era of Rye was very different. That was, you guys were all swagger and bombast, and nasty riffs, but in a different way. Yeah. And but then again, there's always going to be people. Oh, I like that era better. It's like the era where they didn't know how to write songs. Okay, but
yeah. Well, that's the thing. We were still trying to figure out how to write songs and be a band.
Yeah, which can yield some awesome results, because it's like, wow, that's crazy. Why did they do that? Oh, nobody told them they couldn't. So
right, you don't know the rules, so you just wind up breaking them because you don't know them anyway. It frees you up to be more creative because you don't know how to write a song yet.
Yeah,
and that. We didn't know how to write songs. We didn't understand song structure yet, or this is the way it should go.
Well, and I think that gets across in that documentary too, which again, not to the same extent that the Tom Petty one does, the 4-hour long one, where it's like talks about Mudcrutch for like 40 minutes, and I love it, by the way. But I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is like fucking Lord of the Rings. What are we doing here? But it gets across the idea that it was like, well, basically, y'all were friends first, and then like had this idea and did this thing, and we're like, all right, well, this is cool. Let's just do this, and then that just gradually evolved and changed and was something where you became better at being a band, as well as all the things that are associated with which again, I guess you should, if you do it long enough, you probably should. But
one would hope.
One would hope, but the energy was still there, because even when you're doing stuff that's more of a line, with arena rock and like AC/DC and whatnot, it's still coming at that with like that bombast that we associated with punk rock, because most rock and roll got really toothless for a really long time. And I'm not talking about How to Train Your Dragon, let's put it that way. But it's you guys were attacking it, and there's a lot of bands that like are good, but they don't put on that kind of show. They don't put on that kind of show, and they're not putting that kind of energy into it. They're just kind of like, I'm doing the thing that is required to do to play the song. Okay.
Yeah, like every night, the idea was that we were going to go out there and just go balls to the wall. And like to be able to do that, and we got better at doing that because I think we became better at playing together, more proficient at, our craft or our instruments or whatever the case may be. And we're still able to be really active and animated on stage. Yeah. And there's some bands that can't do that. For whatever reason.
Well, or maybe there's not interest in that, or they don't, to them it's not important, or whatever. Like, I'm not trying to judge. I'm not saying there's only one way to do things. Don't get me wrong. But like, it's definitely, it comes across as like, oh no, these guys are like coming for blood. Like this is war.
That was very, so you're 100% right about that. That was very much our mentality. Like, we, even bands we loved and we played with, like, we weren't coming for their blood, but we certainly like wanted to raise the bar. Yeah. Right. Or, meet whatever level they were playing at. We were sort of opening for them. Like, that was the idea. There was this sort of competitiveness in Rye, like not in a negative way, but just like we wanted to go out there, and clearly we wanted to be heard and we wanted to be noticed. And like, we totally meant it. Like, it was totally sincere.
Right. And you're coming in from position, and with those kinds of shows, when you're playing with other bands, ideally it'll help sort of everyone raise the bar, because if you're a band that's like well established, like, okay, we can't rest on our laurels here. And if you're a band that's not well established, it's even more like, okay, we need to we need to do what we do really well. Let's rethink the set list arrangement or whatever, like let's figure this out, because you don't want to be the one that lets down. And that comes back to the community thing, right? That we're talking about, totally. it being like, not just rugged individuals out there, but we're all like part of it, like a larger thing, a larger tapestry of something that's special and important and deserves celebration.
Yeah.
So, okay, so ostensibly we're talking about the new record. So, like, let's get back on track for that. So, Steve rules. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Right.
So clearly they both absolutely rule. And I
Yeah.
was sitting there daydreaming, and I was like, I wonder if I could get all of us together to do a cover of a Shellac and a Jehu song.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it just sort of came to me. I was sitting there daydreaming, and I was like, I wonder if we could pull that off. Like, not musically pull it off, but like everyone's sort of doing their own thing, living their lives. You know, you get older, life just gets busier. You know, you're doing 3 shows a week.
I know, right? Oh boy. Let me tell you.
So I just put it in our group chat, and I was like, would you guys have any interest in doing this?
Yeah.
And everyone was just like, yeah, 100%, absolutely. That's awesome. Let's fucking do this. And then it came down to, all right, well, what songs are we gonna do? Right,
because then you actually have to follow it up with, all right, well, let's get down to details, and that's usually where stuff falls apart.
Yeah, 100%. You know, and there was some doubting along the way. Like, I certainly wasn't doubting it, but there were some doubts along the way. Like, are we going to be able to pull this off? Are we going to get this out? Are we going to be able to make time to rehearse? Like, you know, I'm down in Philly right now. A couple of the guys are in Jersey City. Right. We have one guy who's like in Southern Jersey. Justin's in West. So we're all a little bit scattered these days.
And you're not playing every week. You're not like, you know, doing a regular thing, right? So then there's that too, where
you know, and that's the way Rye has functioned for like the last 15 years. It's like, if someone approaches us about something, or we feel good about something, then we get in a room and we play together. And like, usually it's to play a live show or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, but generally it's all like, all right, we feel good about this. Everyone's on board. Let's do it. And that's happened periodically in the last 10 years.
And I think I want to put a pin in that for a second, because I love that, and I think that that's so interesting because people are so tied up with the idea of you know, oh, they broke up, so now they don't talk with each other, or now they don't, like, whatever. People, like the idea of like a band being like, you know, all right, it's like a book. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end, and there isn't really so many stories out there of it just being like, oh no, they don't do stuff like they used to, but they still will, you know, get together and do stuff when that makes sense, which is kind of the Shellac model, frankly. I mean, like, that's like what they would do, right? And I talked to every member of that band, was like, yeah, it's probably the secret to our longevity. You know, to be around them all the time, right? Yeah, okay.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Which you know, hey, I'm like, look, I've just been out for like a total like 6 weeks in the past 2 months. I get it. It's like, oh yeah, I'm ready for not being around those particular people, and I love them to death.
Absolutely.
They're probably really ready to be done with me for a while.
Right.
But it's like, in that way, like when you get together, it can be special, and you can kind of lean into, oh yeah, this is cool because, you know, we're doing something that we're all aligned towards. So
yeah. And I think the thing for us too is like, you know, you mentioned that we started with friendships first, right? And like we started when we were like 16, 15 years old. Like, I think the oldest of us was 17 at the time. And so, you know, those are like such formative years.
Definitely, yeah.
And the things that were happening at the time, I think for each of us, you know, moving into like our early 20s, like we were touring a lot, we were spending a lot of time together, but we were really bonded, I think, because of what was going on in our respective personal lives too. Like, teenage years can be a pretty tumultuous time.
Yeah.
Depending.
Newsflash, everybody. Yeah.
Right. And so we really bonded over that. Like, we had each other. We were like this little gang. And we were like, okay, we have each other. Like, and Rye was this vehicle to express a whole bunch of stuff that we were feeling. Like, they are my family, you know? And like, we've spent time apart, sure. Like, there was a good 5 years, like 2006, when we we're like, all right, we need to take a break from this. Like, we didn't know what was going to happen with the band, but it certainly, like, we had been through a lot with whole Curses, DreamWorks collapsing. Like, we're just like, you know, like some of us, we didn't speak for like 4 or 5 years. And then, you know, we kind of like slowly warmed up and started talking again and, you know, hashing some shit out along the way too, you know, and being like, there's a bunch of stuff that got in the way of all of this. Like,
well, and part of that's, you know, not having the youthful impertinence of, you know, where you can like jump towards certain reactions maybe that you wouldn't when you're like a little more like, all right, I'm gonna let that one slide, you know. And part of that is, you know, that's just like maturing, right? Which is a dirty word in rock and roll, but
right.
I mean, look at Albini, right? I mean, geez, like talk about someone that it's like, wow, total culpability for, you know, like calling your band Rape Man. It's like oof.
Right. Yeah.
You know, like that kind of, and that's like sort of the extreme example. But no, just the idea of being better human beings to each other, right? And it not being like the idea somehow that like, oh, great music can only be built on like conflict. Bullshit.
That's total bullshit.
Yeah.
I don't buy into that at all. You know, I think the best music that we made was when we were the most tight and the most bonded, for sure,
and the most aligned, right? And everybody's moving towards a goal, and you know, that's. Yeah, I think that's well, and that shows through with the music too. In all eras, that everybody, you know, was kind of like moving towards a thing. You know, we're like, okay, we're there's not someone's like, I really want to do ska songs, guys. You know, there's nobody doing that. No. That I'm aware of. I don't know. Maybe they were. What do I know?
I mean, aside, it's quite possible. but So sort of moving back to the 7-inch.
I'm bringing my own show off the rails. Sorry, my bad.
No. I love going off in different directions. So, we finally settled on obviously Wingwalker and Bullet Train, and the idea was, okay, well, with Jehu, hard to find a song that you're going to fit on a 7-inch, right? Like,
right? Yeah, we're gonna do like
especially off, right? Like especially off Yank Crime, it's like ooh, and then we sort of narrow it down to like a little bit more to like, okay, so here's the 7-inch that was on Merge. Those songs are incredible. And then the one other song that I did like that was that I was like really, I thought we could pull off was New Math.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
It's a shorter song on the 7-inch that came with Yank Crime.
Yeah.
And so, we just finally settled on Bullet Train, obviously. And then that was an easier one to settle on just because of like, how long Jehu songs typically were.
Right. Exactly. It's like they're Joycean epics, but compliment, you know. Yeah. It's like punk prog. Reese would hate that, by the way.
We're like, how are we going to fit this on a 7-inch?
Yeah, there's no way. You got a hard constraint. Well, and that's and you know, and both of New Math has got that. You know, I don't know by now. Like it's got the similar sort of like sensibility. Like they both have like those things where it's. You know, it's aggressive, but it's brainy. Yeah. Brainy.
Yep.
It's a brainy aggression, and you know that's there's something to be said. First time I heard Rye, I was like, oh, it's like Jersey Jehu.
Oh, I feel like that's such a compliment.
It was intended as such. I was like, oh, cool, you know, like right on, and I had no frame of reference of any kind, and then like you know, and then. And I might have talked about this when Dave was on the show. I honestly can't remember, frankly.
Yeah.
But I totally meant that as a compliment. I was like, oh, this is really cool. And that was before I even had really like heard any of the records. I saw you guys play it in Princeton at the last show.
Oh yeah.
I think that was the first time I saw you play. So that would have been. Like Lipstick Game era, I think, probably.
It would have been like probably 92, 2000.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. Lipstick Game was probably already out. Yeah, and we were trying to write songs for On Top, but it wasn't going well.
Yeah. Because that was like 2002. So I remember, well, we played together, but you guys were late. We played together in Portland. It was the tour with Blood Brothers, and you guys, I don't remember why you rolled in like real late, and
not uncommon for Rye, unfortunately.
Yeah. But I was still excited to see you. But I had only known Hee Saw Dhuh Kaet and Lipstick Game, and so you bust loose like it was like entirely On Top songs. Okay. Except for the title track of Lipstick Game, I think, at the very end. And I was like, wow, that was awesome. I didn't know a single one of those songs. But I've listened to this band like obsessively for the past like 3 years. But like I was like expecting a different show. But it was awesome. I was like, it was killer. It wasn't quite what I expected.
Right.
By the way, I still remember that Replicator show. We only did this one time, and people still come up to me about this. It's the dumbest thing. We found this standee of Bruce Springsteen, and we put it on screen and insisted that it be mic'd. It was just some idiotic thing we were doing to like amuse ourselves, like on tour, right? And to this day, people are like, oh, remember we played Portland like 2 weeks ago or something, and someone's like, hey, remember when you had that Bruce Springsteen standee on stage? I'm like, how is this the thing that everybody remembers? Why is it that? Crazy. But I also remember Blood Brothers played that as well, and they were sick, and that's where I became friends with those guys, and they did okay.
They certainly did. We met Cody pretty early on in the Blood Brothers, and he was like he was still like a teenager. He was young.
Yeah, they were like wild young, is what I remember at the time.
Yeah, he was super young, and I think it was before, or they maybe were just starting Blood Brothers or something. Yeah. And I don't know if we stayed at his or his brother's house, Rocky's house, maybe. I don't know. Yeah. But I remember like meeting Cody, and then all of a sudden, like Blood Brothers, like a few years later, I was like, oh, whoa, like, damn.
Well, and they were the first
because they were a ball of fire on stage.
100%, and they were the first band I saw of that era that were doing like the two singers doing like the wildly different things. Like the one guy is more melodic, the one guy is going more like Gravity Records on it. And I was like, wow, I've never seen that. That was crazy. And then like I only saw that for like 2 years after that, unfortunately, by other bands trying to do it. But but respect that band cooked as a live act.
Yeah,
man. I always would see them when they would come through, just from seeing them on that show. Which honestly, I'm not sure if I ever would have heard of them if we hadn't been playing that show. You know what I mean? It's like, who? Okay.
Yeah. No, I hear you. If I didn't, we hadn't met Cody, who like struck up a friendship with Dave. I don't think I would have known like who they were. And we did a little run with them too, which was great. They're awesome dudes.
Well, anyway, I'm just relating personal experiences of me when I saw you guys now, but I bring up the last show specifically because that was like, dude, Don Cab played that, like Uzeta, Shellac, Seam. It was crazy.
So we were going through this period at the time where we're like struggling to write songs that would have become On Top, and it wasn't going well. Yeah. And we said, okay, we need a break from one another. And we weren't rehearsing for like 6 months. It was like 6 months. And then whoever put on that show from Princeton called and said, do you want to play this show? And it's like, you don't say no to a show like that.
Yeah.
You were like, what? Shellac, Don Cab? Like,
who's playing? Like Jesus Christ. Yeah. Oxes, like, I think US Maple played that show? Right? I think Seam. Well, it's the only time I saw Seam, so I know they played. Airborne Radar played. Yeah. That was Paul Newman. Remember Paul Newman? They played.
I do. Yeah.
So, I mean, me and my friend flew out to fucking Jersey to see it. So that's how good of a show it was. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just in this little, it was a big field, but it was just in the field.
And I feel like most of the people at that school were like, what's going on? And then there's no, we're making pilgrimages. Like, this is like Mecca for like freaks, nerds, and weirdos, right?
Yeah, that was a great show. And so, but yeah, so, you're talking about Jersey Jehu. you know, they were so
compliment.
No, I know. I take it as such. Yeah, they were so 90. Like when we first heard them, we were first becoming a band. It was like they were incredible. They're still incredible. And we were just like, all right, you know, you're influenced by what you're listening to, and you try to aspire to be that. And you pull those influences in, and you know, like, to be quite honest, like at that time, 94, like when we were forming a band, although we didn't know how to play, Shellac and Jehu were two bands that had a huge influence on Rye, like out of the gate. You know, and it sort of weave its way into our music, of course, like, but probably more so than a lot of other bands that we, you know, looked up to or you know, really liked. Like, I mean, there was Crane at the time that I always remember was a huge influence on us. Six Finger Satellite, like that band does not get enough credit.
Dude, that band smokes so hard. Like, I had Rick and Jay on the show. I was over the moon, man. I don't care if a single human being listens to this episode. I'm just glad to talk to these guys to find out what the real story is.
I listened to it like way after the
did you?
fact.
Nice.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I loved it. Yeah. Like this band Flight Camp. Do you remember Flight Camp from Canada?
I don't think I know that name. No.
Oh man, you got to check them out.
Good stuff. All right.
Yeah, cool. They put out
like Tim Green to give me homework.
Yeah,
that's one of my favorite episodes. I'm like shutting down the episode, and Tim's like, "Hey, have you heard this record?" I'm like, "Oh no, I haven't." I was like, "Oh no, you should check it out." "Oh, how about this one? Have you heard this one?" He's like giving me like a shopping list. I'm like, "All right, I'll write all this stuff down." But I thought we were closing the show. It's fine. It's the format. Producer isn't going to be rushing you off or nothing. I mean, it's all good stuff.
Tim is good. Tim is definitely good for that.
Yeah, I mean, I love him to death. Like, it's again compliment. Yeah. It was like, wow, some show. I'm just getting a shopping list of stuff to check out. Okay, cool. Right on.
Yeah,
I did too. It was all great.
Right? Yeah.
These are the bands that were sort of in the sauce.
Definitely.
For what you're operating. Which doesn't say you're trying to do a thing like any of them, but these are the ones like, wow, did you hear this thing? It's awesome. Like, let's do something that is the equal of this. You know, like let's do something that inspires in that way.
Absolutely. And you know, and both Jehu and Shellac were very much, you know, in the sauce in a big way.
Yeah.
Early for Rye. And so, you know, and thinking about that, it was like, particularly with Steve, but Dave also had a friendship with Rick. And Dave took Rick's passing particularly hard. He was another one. I usually don't get like this. I mean, we played with Hot Snakes a few times. I've been at some social occasions through Dave with Rick, and I was always intimidated to approach him, which I don't really feel that way about a lot of people.
Right.
But like in retrospect, and like hearing a lot of interviews with him, and like I kind of did a deep dive after he passed of like just listening to interviews with him.
Sure. And
just being like, man, I wish I would have known him better. He seemed like just a wonderful human being.
And real kind of like not a curmudgeon, but definitely like a dark sense of humor about stuff, but in a very specific way that was like really kind of like, oh, it's not like coming from a place of defeat. It's a place of like celebration. Like he used to like call punk rock flyers like a celebration of failure. I'm like, ooh. I'm like, no, I mean, that's a good way. You know, it's like, oh, okay, well, sure.
Yeah.
I nodded like I pretend I knew what that meant. I was like, oh yeah, sounds great, Rick. Yeah. I was like, what's he talking about? What's he on about? Celebration of failure. But then I get what he was saying is like, no, everyone's doing the best they can with the resources they have to get it across, especially back in the day, you know, pre-internet, as we know it, where that was the way you had to convey this is the thing you're going to see, and here's the reasons why you should go. And, you know, here's these maybe later on laughable attempts at making art that, you know, are somehow like outsider art or like interesting in their ineptitude. I'm like, no, I get that now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and his fucking, obviously his like artwork is just,
Oh yeah,
it's fucking amazing. It's amazing.
I keep turning this around to me, but like I hassled him for literal years to do in art for us. And like,
I don't blame you.
In art, doesn't matter what it was, like album cover, whatever, right? And then finally he did it for the Art or Murder, the second Secret Friends record. It's so good, it's perfect. It's love it. It's amazing. It's wonderful. And I asked Rick Froberg. It's like, hey, this is really cool. Can we make like a T-shirt of this or something? He's like, oh no, I'll make you something unique for that. It'll be too busy for a T-shirt. I'll make you something unique. I'm like, oh, okay, sounds okay. Like, yeah, hassle me about it in like a month or two. So I did nothing, and then like 6 months later, hey, about that. Oh yeah, I'll get to it. Rinse and repeat for I don't know, like 6 years or something along those lines, and then it's out of the blue like a message. I'm like, hey, we're about to do these shows in McCluskey. Need some new merch items. Like if for some reason you got time to do it. Remember when you talked about doing this back in 2016? It's like, oh yeah, shoot, let me do it right now. And so that's when he made the T-shirt design he did for us, which also kicks ass and rules and is that very unique and like expressive, like we shall not see his likes again either style.
No.
But it was just years, and he's like, oh yeah, just feel free to hassle me like all the time about this if I don't get back to you. I'm like, well, I don't really feel comfortable doing that, dude. Like. You're like one of my favorite artists and one of my favorite singers in the band, and like it just feels like untoward to be like, hey, about the thing you said you were gonna do for my band, like come on, fuck out of here. But he did eventually do both of those things. And then when he came on Protonic, I sent him the leader cut. I was like, hey, is this all right? He's like, I look like Tiny Tim. I'm like, there you go. Rick Froberg. Comedic stylings of Mr. Rick Fork.
I remember you had a really good conversation with him about flags.
He was
talked about flags. He was like just like on flags.
All about those flags and the bootleggers.
He loved
yeah. Is that about a Wire show at some point? Like, it's like 5 people there. I'm like, oh, geez, okay, poor Wire. It's hard relatable though.
Oh yeah, all been there.
I was gonna say we've all played that show.
Oh yeah. Speaking
and one of us recently.
Yep.
I was like, this is Saturday? What are we doing here? Anyway, moving on. So iconic singer too. We haven't talked about your vocals, which I think are very distinctive. But I feel like you got into a thing where instead of it just being bombast, it was like you kind of learned to use it as an instrument. That sounds so lame, but you know what I mean. Where it's like you learned to use it more instead of blunt force trauma, you use it a little more elegantly, right? When did you like start? Was that a process that just kind of happened naturally, or did you have like the Hetfield moment of like, well, if you don't stop singing like this, you're literally going to lose your voice, or anything like along those lines?
Yeah. So obviously it started where we would practice, and I didn't have a PA, and I had this small practice crate amp that I would sing through. When I plugged the cord in, and then I would sing
through for when you absolutely positively don't have anything else. Yeah.
right. And I think I sang through like a Radio Shack mic.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And had to try to compete with everything else in the room. Right. Like, and so I was
Dave in his like fucking 50-inch cymbal or whatever, like just like,
yeah. And it's like, how am I going to be? Yeah, how am I going to be heard? Right.
Yeah.
And so it started that way, and then probably on our first tour, Charles Maggio from Gern Blanson, who put out the early Rye records, he kind of like chaperoned the tour for us because we were still teenagers at the time.
Crazy,
yeah. And so he booked it, drove for us. And he was like, no, dude, this is how you have to try and sing. Otherwise, because I was spitting up at one point like blood on the, because I was shredding myself. And he's like, oh,
and of course, if you're a kid, especially a guy of a certain age, like, that's awesome. No, it is not awesome. There's nothing awesome about that. It's terrible. Yeah.
No. And then over time, it was like listening to different singers and performers and being like, all right, like, like learning more.
Right. Like Robert Plant's probably not blowing out his voice every night, you know?
No.
Is he over singing? Yes, he definitely is over singing. He like uses every available square inch of space to do like a yodel or something. It's like, fucking calm down, you know?
Yeah.
But whatever. But as far as technique goes, there's a reason why he's a good singer, right? He's good technique.
Yeah. And it that evolved over time. Like, I learned to become a better singer. I don't by any means think I'm a good singer. Like, it's a weird thing to sort of say I'm a singer. I'm like, I feel like more like a performer of some kind.
Well, but those are separate skills, right? Because there are people that are great singers, but they're not amazing performers. And there's people that are great performers that are not great singers as well. And, I dare say you actually are both. Because the thing is, whether it's like when I say Buzz Osborne's one of my favorite vocalists. Is he the most amazing vocalist in the world? No, but it's perfect for the music.
Right.
Totally. And it's exactly what it needs to be. And it's so confidently its own thing that, unless you're coming at it with preconceived notions, like you're going to be like, this is great. Like, what's the problem here? I mean, Rick sounded like an alley cat half the time. You know what I mean? It was badass.
Like for me, it's so distinctive. You immediately
know exactly what it
it's
is.
Fucking him.
Yeah.
And it's like, for me, definitely one of the best voices in punk rock for me. Like,
dude, even in Obits, where it was like, it's punk rock Yardbirds or whatever, right? It was like, he still was like, what is this, the same dude singing, and who like could not be more disdainful of his own skills as a vocalist. I'm like, you kidding me? You're like, people try to sound like you.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And for good reason.
Yeah. So in doing the 7-inch and recording the vocals for
back to that. Jesus Christ. Sorry.
Yeah, no, sorry. But doing that was a little bit for me, like slightly intimidating, because I was like, we play both Wingwalker and Bullet Train pretty straightforward. They're not interpretations.
Yeah.
We didn't want them to be interpretations. Like, we really wanted this to be a tribute in some way. And like, when people see the art, it's actually coming out today. But like, the art is all references to
it's an homage
Jehu
to
releases.
Right. It's you got the 7-inch. I have it upstairs, but the Wingwalker 7-inch style, and then you have like the duct tape cover of which is I was like, oh, that's awesome. They like are doing the thing. That's great.
We wanted to be very true and it be very much a tribute to those guys. But yeah, so in doing the vocals, I was like, man, like, fuck, dude, like, I'm just gonna do my thing, but like, having to sing Rick's vocals, it's Rick Froberg. That's the voice, man. That's the voice. It kills.
Yeah, exactly. You're not going to croon it like Frank Sinatra or something, right? I mean, like, what are we doing?
Yeah. I was like, all right, like, and he gets up there pretty high at times.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it was, just love that dude's voice.
So how was it? Because you guys have gotten back together to do stuff.
Yeah.
Usually for live shows, right? But like getting back to record is like it's kind of a different scenario. So how was that like as a unit, like recording after all this time?
It went really smoothly, actually. I was really surprised. So there was, between the two recordings, 6 of us. So every member that's ever been in Rye is on one of the recordings.
Because Herb even does background vocals, right?
He does. Yeah. He does background vocals on Wingwalker.
And you got Greg and Dave both.
Yeah. So Greg plays drums on Bullet Train and Dave plays drums on Wingwalker. And then Justin played second guitar on Bullet Train. And so, every member of Rise on the recordings in some way, which is really, really nice too. That was intentional. Like, we really I wanted to make sure that everyone was a part of it. And everyone wanted to be a part of it.
Sure. Who'd be like, no, I'm giving that a miss. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
You do you, I guess.
Yeah. We got together twice and rehearsed twice. And then
wow. All right.
Yeah. And then did it in one day. Like went into the studio, and it was about I want to say like a 10-hour day probably. We didn't mix that day, but like everything. And it was everything, but there was minimal overdubs. I sang Wingwalker live, and then didn't sing Bullet Train live. I think we used some of the scratch on Bullet Train.
Yeah.
And then I had to go back and give it a pass. Like, just
it's a tough one, man. Dude.
Yeah.
Like, my friend Caleb does this thing called Karaoke Underground, which is karaoke, but like with songs that we love. Songs that like are like more obscure. Shudder to Think, or like, Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, or something along those lines. And I got it in my head. I'm gonna do Bullet Train to Vegas. It's gonna be awesome. And then like as I got through the first verse, I was like, I made a terrible mistake, haven't I? Because I was like, oh man, all right, well, in for a penny, in for a pound, let's go. But it's like, no, it's a tougher song to sing than like you think it is, because you're like, oh, it's just some punk rock thing, it's awesome punk rock thing, but no, he's going for it.
Yeah, he's belting it out.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, oh, all right,
it's
breath control.
yeah, it's pretty relentless in that way. Totally.
Yeah, and that's another thing. No breaks, right? Which is also like it was like when he was talking about doing if credit's what matters, I'll take credit. It's like, well, very clearly that's a song recorded first but ever playing live, because there's literally no time to take a breath at any point during any of it. No. Which is like, yeah, fair.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that went really smoothly. There were minimal. I think I want to say one of them was done in one take, and one of them was done in two. I don't remember.
Nice. So it's like real quick.
Yeah, it was. Real
I mean,
quick.
they've got good energy, so it makes sense, right? I was like, oh.
Yeah. I mean, they're both such amazing songs, and we did reach out to Bob Weston and John Reese to just kind of like get a blessing.
Say, hey, we're doing this. Yeah,
we want to do this. Like, are you okay with this? And the word back was just like, yeah, go for it. John, Dave had some communication with John, and he was just very, very nice about it. I mean, talk about fucking punk rock duos, man. Like,
oh man,
they are Rick and John are one of the best.
Dude, I might have mentioned this when I had Froberg on, but like all I knew from Hot Snakes, because I got to see him real early on, right? I saw him a bunch of times, and I was like, I heard, Froberg and Reese have a new band, and it kind of sounds like the Wipers. I'm like, I'm in. Where and when? I'm ready. Yeah. And like, it was like, well, you're not wrong, but it's like also like somehow more than that too. But it's like that's when I first realized, like, oh, there's something. As much as I love all of those dudes' stuff, like those two guys together, it's like this is like extra. This is like a power up. This is like a warp zone or something, right? Like this is like an extra. Like, what is even happening? It's like undefinable in some way.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because I listen to some like Plosives, which is awesome. I like Rob Crow's vocals a lot, and it's like more, sounds very in the Hot Snakes vein, but it does hit differently. Mm-hmm. And like Obits, I adore Obits. I have multiple Obits shirts. Yeah. They borrowed my amps on multiple tours. I love Obits. They're great, but it hits differently. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that they're different bands. Of course they should hit differently. But like it's just kind of funny that like those two guys together, it's like that's like magic somehow, right?
Oh yeah, it's complete magic. I mean, love the Hot Snakes. I listen to them multiple times weekly, probably because algorithms are involved too. But I never find myself skipping the song. I'm like, oh yeah, no. I think it was so we played with them 2 or 3 times, I think. Nice. And Rick was always the one who invited us on the bill or asked us to play, or maybe Dave asked Rick, can we play the show or whatever. I think it was the first show we played with them. It was the Strokes opened.
Wow.
In New York City. In New York City. The
Great.
Strokes opened.
Sure. Yeah.
We played, and then Hot Snakes closed.
Fucking A.
And then
Wow.
probably like 3 months later or 6 months later, the Strokes are like the biggest
band
band
in the world.
And like they were so hyped. Like it was like, oh, they were doing this residency. That's how they wound up on the show.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing them and just being like, talk about bands that, you know, and I don't want to be like throwing shade or be an asshole about any band, but like I remember seeing them and going like, all right, like where is the
all right.
I was just like,
no
okay,
danger to this whatsoever, but okay.
No,
Yeah.
no. I was like, all right, the songs are okay, but like, you know, I was expecting to see like electricity. I was just like, you know, and I wasn't there.
And it's weird that it's weird how like stuff like that can be perceived, where it's like they're given more credit than they deserve. And I'm not trying to like bash that band. I don't care enough about that band to do that, frankly.
Sure.
But like it's also, I guess it depends on what you're looking for in a band too.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that's something where, well, I just rewatched it, so it's fresh in mind. Dave in your documentary is talking about that, about how like, you know, like, oh, it's almost like they're too good because like people like want something a little safer, a little more easier to digest, rather than being confronted by this like rock and roll beast that's like Godzilla in its way towards you, you know. It's like, oh, this is scary. It's like, well, I think that's awesome, but usually cater to my sensibilities. You won't build a successful career is usually the move. So think of that what you will, but it's also like, I don't know, songs are fine, you know, good. There's plenty of bands that are like, yeah, that's fine. That's okay.
Yeah. It just,
I just need a little more. I don't know. That's me.
Me too. Like, I want to be able to look at a band and like, it just seemed like they were just too cool for school and like, didn't give a shit. And like, that's fine. That's a whole maybe shtick or whatever, but it just wasn't for me. And I was like, you know, I want to see a fucking band going for it. Like, I want to see a band that looks like they're into what they're doing.
Why would you not? Is my question.
Right?
Like, because it's way better than you. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, hey, we're playing to 15 people right now, but it does not matter because we're gonna play as if we're playing to 1,500.
Right.
You know, and then like those 15 people are like, oh my god, that's the best thing I've ever seen. Rather than like, I was at a show, and music occurred. You know.
Yeah. Like that was awesome, and they hold that in their memory bank, right? It's there. It's
and that's and again, I don't know, maybe that's like, you know, punk rock superiority complex or something, but it's just, I just don't understand why you would do it if you weren't going to put your like everything you had into it. And that's something I always felt with you guys, like at any era of the band, I was like, oh, these guys are freaking going, you know. Like I still to this day remember first time I heard Thanksgiving Day for Cats, and like with that just, you know, which is like, dun 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 dun, that kind of Devo-y on, ironically, part where it just goes for a while, and then it like comes in with like the rock break. I was like, oh god, that's so good. Like that's so stupid, but in the best possible way. Where it's just like, oh, why are they doing that? Oh, because it rules. That's why. like if you write down on paper like that's idiotic, take out those 3 minutes. You know, like that doesn't make any sense. That's like, what are you doing there? And it's like, no, but when you listen to it, it's like, this rules. Like, this is awesome. Man. And I mean, I've, you know, I'm not going to call them out. I've heard a couple bands sort of specifically with that song. It's like, oh, you like that song too, huh? Okay, cool.
I love that.
So the imitation's a sincere form of flattery, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's. I know we're bouncing all around here, but let's go. So from the Hee Saw Dhuh Kaet era.
Yeah,
you know, into Lipstick Game, because we kind of skipped ahead on there, right? Talk to me about that era, like as your slight lineup shift, you know, like slight.
So actually, right before Hee Saw Dhuh Kaet, Herb left the band. Our second guitar player, Herb, left the band, and he just wasn't. He wasn't able to tour as much. We weren't very forgiving of that. Like, you know, we were like, we want to tour and we want to do this.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we sort of kicked him out of the band, which was a shitty thing to do. And then we were a 4-piece, right? And so made He Saw Dhuh Kaet that way. And then Justin decided that he was going to move out to San Diego. Him and his girlfriend, or can't remember if she was living here or whatever the case may be, he moved out to San Diego. And so I was like, shit, okay. Like, we still wanted to be a band. It wasn't going to be possible. Like, you know, you don't do the trans sort of nation thing like people do now, right? It's like,
there wasn't the capability to do it that way. Yeah.
No,
exactly. Yeah.
Definitely not.
Nor was there interest.
Yeah. And so the most logical choice for us was Dave's brother. They had been in a band together. They had been in this, you know, the hardcore band Merrill.
Yeah.
And so we asked Greg to join, and Dave just moved over to bass. And that's Dave's first instrument is bass.
That's a great bass record. Like his sound on that, like what he's doing, it's like it's such a killer bass record. And I remember tripping out when he'd be like, "Wait, the drummer's on the bass?"
Yeah.
You know, because again, I didn't know you guys from Moses. I was like, I don't know any of these guys' name. I don't know who they are. Like, whatever. It's like, oh, it's a different lineup. Oh, is it? Okay, I didn't know. Oh, okay.
Yeah, Dave just moved over to bass, and his brother came and played on drums. And it just worked really well because we knew Greg, and Dave and Greg had played together forever already.
Yeah, sure.
And Dave really, I mean, Dave was very involved in writing songs for He Saw Dhuh Kaet, like everything up to He Saw Dhuh Kaet 2. And then with Lipstick Game, I don't know, man, he just, as far as I'm concerned anyway, like he was just like a songwriting machine for that record.
Ripping them out.
Yeah, he was just like churning them out. And yeah, I mean, you know, we would just sort of get in there, fucking, you know, hash them out together. And then, like, you know, before we knew it, we had a full record of songs. But like, I think also the influences of the band changed by the time we were listening. By the time we were writing Lipstick Game, we were listening to different things. And I think that always comes through in our music. Like,
for sure.
What are our influences at the time, and what are we being sort of introduced to? And we're still relatively young, right? 20, maybe 20, 21 at the time. So the last song on that record, there's a whole piano fucking piece that's going on.
That's right. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
You know, there's this droned out guitar part that goes on forever with Bustle Bide's Last Ride and through the years. Like, we were getting high a lot, so we were smoking a lot of weed. I remember that, but we were also really into Pink Floyd live at Pompeii.
Sure. Well, why wouldn't you be? It's like one of the best live things ever.
Yeah,
it's awesome. And don't you love that, like, when they're playing the first song, like Nick Mason's close up is when he drops a stick. And he's got to be like, you son of a bitch. And then he like grabs the other stick, but he doesn't miss it. He like goes right into it. But it's like there's something so cool about, human about it, right? Where it's like, oh no, they kept it in there.
Right.
On this like incredible document where they're like, you know, had to be helicoptered out to this remote location where, you know, like it's an insane, you know, classic rock thing. It's like, here's this close up. Oh, you dropped a stick. Okay.
Yeah. So there was a lot more. Like, I remember there was Pink Floyd we were listening to a lot too. Like Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, I remember listening to a lot too at that time. King Crimson too, we were listening a lot to at that time. Mothers of Invention, like like a lot of the stuff, and it was the first time we were introduced to that stuff. Like, we had never heard that stuff before, you know, and so that was sort of having an influence on, like, it made its way in its own fucked up way into our music, or like how we interpreted that stuff, right? Yeah. It made its way into our music somehow, and so I think that record wound up sounding very different than He Saw Dhuh Kaet.
Well, absolutely, because Hee Saw Dhuh Kaet was all like bombast, pretty much.
Yeah.
It was, it was just like, that, and I use the term as a descriptor of energy more than as music, but like the punk rock furor, right? Like it's just it's just it's a very immediate record. It's like right there, most of the songs are like relatively brief, except
totally.
And then and then the next one is sort of like, okay, this is more. There's stuff gets more expansive. You're saying King Crimson, I can get it. I totally understand. Where it's like, oh, we're doing like our sort of like version of that with some of these and Pink Floyd and whatever. Yeah, it makes sense.
Like that. Very very much that first record was, we certainly wear these influences on our sleeve, and I think without shame, I think that's how music goes. And gets sort of passed on. Is like,
sure,
sort of. A lot of touch and go stuff we were listening to.
Yeah, if you still like Shellac and Fugazi, you're going to be okay. It's
like that's right, and that's the thing. It was like a lot. It was a lot of Discord. Yeah, it was a lot of Discord and a lot of touch and go stuff.
Yeah,
and we were sort of influenced by like all of that. Like, fuck, man, like I'm still in love with that shit.
Sure, of course.
Like Mule and Rodan. And
God, yeah.
Like our longer songs, I think the one on the Carb Split, we were like, fuck, like how are we gonna write a song as long as that Rodan song on Rusty? I can't remember. How are we gonna write a song that long?
How do we do that? Right, exactly.
How do we do that? Let's try and do that. It's like, and no, I don't. Doesn't sound anything like anything off Rodan.
Sure, yeah.
And then I think, sort of on a tangent here, like along the way, like whether it was Jeff Mueller from Rodan or
who's the best. I mean, what a dude, right? Like just like amazing musician, great artist, great dude.
Yeah, amazing dude. Like we got to meet him later on and toured with Juno 44, or and Fred from Hoover was in that band, who was also an influence early on, right?
Hoover, not talked about nearly enough. Hoover was a great band.
No, they were a huge influence on us. The first time I saw them was in '94, and I was like in a basement in New Jersey. It was like,
what's happening?
Whoa,
yeah, it's like, exactly.
Like, who are these guys?
Yeah.
But like, even meeting Tim, it was like, Nation of Ulysses was a huge influence on Rye in the beginning.
Sure. Yeah.
And then like coming to meet these dudes and becoming friends with them and like sort of feeling like, all right, like we've earned what, and it was meaningful for us, like earning their respect as like, all right, like Rye is a good band or a competent band. Like for us, that was a big deal.
Yeah. Like it's a sign of, well, it's a mutually assured respect situation, right? Where it's like, no, they're digging what you're doing, you're digging what they're doing, and you're approaching things. Everyone's doing well. Everyone's doing a good job.
Right. I think for us though, in the beginning, we never thought any of that would be possible. You know what I mean? Like, we never thought we'd leave Jersey City.
Well, and then you get the whole imposter complex part of it too. You're like, what are we even doing here? Like, what like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Which you can compensate for by going the other direction. We're the best band that ever lived. And then another band just blows you off the stage. And you're like, oh, never mind. Not tonight. We're not.
And I've certainly had those moments, and I say this in embarrassment, when there are like, sort of 5 people there sometimes, and just being like, or you're opening for a bigger band and they're just like could care less, and I'm just
you're just in the way of somebody's favorite band. Like it doesn't matter what you do, right? Yeah
it's like you can do no right in that situation.
But
yeah, so just having sort of influence on me on certain music having influence on us, and I think that was every sort of step of the way with Rye. It was like, all right, what are we listening? Like, what is being listened to now? And it was never this thing of like trying to like ape it or rip it off. I don't think I'd like to think that we never engaged in that, it was like, okay, like this is influencing us in some way, but it was never about, oh, let's try and fucking steal that part or do like,
well, sure.
You know?
Yeah, because the thing is, you'd be like, wow, it's so cool how this music evokes this emotion or like does this thing that's like, oh, that's so neat. And then like you're thinking about it in terms of what do we do that could do something like that, or like how could we deploy that in a song or something. Well, and that's how influence should work.
Yeah.
Rather, I mean, like whatever. There's a lot of trash I could talk right now. I'm not going to do it, but I'm just saying, like some bands, it's like I've heard that band. You're just doing that, huh? That's all you're doing. Okay.
Right. You know, and I'd like to think Rye wasn't that.
No, for sure not. I mean, like even when, and I do want to. That's like the perfect segue into On Top, actually, because like I said,
let's talk about it.
We played that show with you, and I was like so excited, and I was
You're
still
like,
blown away, but I was just like, I feel like I just saw an AC/DC show. Like, I mean, not a bad way, but just like it was not at all what I expected. And of course, then I heard the record. I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. Okay, so they're applying that, but they're going hard. And I totally get it, because for a long time when we were touring, we played with like the local Jesus Lizard or the local Melvins or the local Shellac band. I just got real sick of hearing it. You know what I mean? So all I would do is listen to like Thin Lizzy and Cheap Trick and AC/DC. It's all I would listen to. I wasn't listening to anything that sound like, because I was like so burned out from hearing it. And when and then when you guys were doing that, I was like, oh, right on. Like I get it. You know, that's going back like to the roots of this and bringing that informed from punk rock or whatever you want to call it place, and like it's attacking it really ferociously, and it worked really well.
I'd like to think that it did. And again, it was like what we were just listening to at the time, like heavily listening to at the time. Yeah. And there was no way that we were ever wanted to or try to escape like what our roots were as a band. Like, you know, well, if it was like, you know, you're sort of taking punk rock or post-hardcore or whatever label you want to put on what we were doing, and then sort of melding it with this more straightforward classic rock sound.
Yeah.
Right. Like we were just that's what we were listening to all the time. You know, there were these handful of bands that we were listening to, like, and we all listened to different stuff, like contemporaries of ours. And then everything else was like, and you were discovering like more and more and more of that, you know, kind of going down deeper into like deeper and deeper rabbit holes.
You heard Humble Pie, you know?
Oh yeah.
By the way, I have to tell you this. Des from Black Flag, this band Astral Jets he's in, like they opened for us in Palmdale, California, this recent tour. Amazing. Remember Black Flag opening for my ass. Crazy. But he's like, oh, you guys kind of remind me of Humble Pie. I'm like, thank you, Des from Black Flag. I understand that reference, and I appreciate it for the compliment it's clearly intended as, but like, holy crap, explain that to like a 17-year-old Conan Neutron. There's no way, right? But
that's awesome.
But like also just, you know, like when you have that epiphany of like, God, Deep Purple's really great, you know? like this band rips. Like, how did I not know all the rest of these songs, you know?
And and I think when we were teenagers, and I think a lot of people do this, is like you will listen to this one genre and that's all you will listen to, and everything else is shit, right? And like I'm not going to listen to that, you know? And we were very immersed in like punk rock and like hardcore and, you know, post-hardcore and, you know, whatever labels you want to put on all that stuff. And then it was like, you start opening your mind up kind of like, and you start listening and being exposed to more and more stuff. And you're just like, oh shit, this is like really amazing. You know, like,
where you're just like, oh wow, Hank Williams Sr. actually kicks ass. Like, how did I not realize this? You know? Like just having that epiphany. For me, that was like working in a record store where like I'm getting paid minimum wage. So like, you know, the education, the musical education was sort of like the real payment as far as I was concerned. Where it's like, oh yeah,
was this in San Fran? Like, did you
this is Berkeley, yeah. So this is area. And I worked at Tower Records, the fourth coolest record store out of 4 in Berkeley.
I lived out there at the time you were there, I think.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay. Well,
I was there.
It's a great time to be alive.
96.
Yeah, I literally worked the Tower Records. That was one of the years I worked there. So if you ever, it was like the members of Green Day would walk in and not get recognized there, so they loved it. They would like buy $300 and like Johnny Cash CDs and Shellac CDs, and okay, great, cool.
Yeah.
But I wasn't getting paid anything. But then that's also I was like, oh wow, like these jazz records are great. There's a lot of rap music that I like. Like it's all just.
Yep.
And it's so funny to talk about that now because anybody who has a phone literally has access to all that now.
I know.
But at the time, it changed my world. It was
yes.
like, oh, set me on my path, such as
Absolutely.
it is.
Absolutely. I mean, I at the time of On Top too, like you're talking about like hip hop records, even like I was so into Old Dirty Bastard at the time.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm so into Old Dirty Bastard. I loved him.
Yeah, right.
And
talk about a unique vocalist, boy. It's like you could try to emulate that guy, you're just gonna fail. It's like Chaos Theory personified as a rapper. Compliment.
And and like that even made its way onto the record. Like the last song on that record.
Oh, sure, okay.
Please.
Yeah.
Right.
Right, of course. Yeah.
Like Old Dirty Bastard's record. Prior to that was And Please. Right? Like it was very much like, so there were influences sort of weaved in all over the place, and it was just sort of like what we were listening to. And by that time, Justin had come, like in the writing for On Top, Justin had moved back to New Jersey. Right. And we started playing together as a 4-piece that like we did with Hee Saw Dhuh Kaet. Yeah. And so we started to write the songs for On Top, and Justin said, there's a song on top called Freshly Frankness. Yeah. And it's one where I embody like more of a character of this guy, Frank. And like characters sort of pop in and out, I think, vocally of like Rye records. But Justin said, I think Herb would sound really good on this song. We should put a solo on this song. Nice. And he invited Herb to come and practice with us, particularly for that song. Herb showed up, and then that was it. Like Herb was back in the band after that, and we were our original 5-piece again that we started out as. It was like immediately like, oh yeah, like this is way better with Herb in the band again.
And you just know immediately. Like you just know.
Yeah, I knew. We knew that practice. It was like, all right, he's back in the band. That's as simple as that.
That's great.
And that's how we continued moving forward. And
well, and it was it's pulling from the reservoir, if you will, of classic rock stuff, which at the time was not. There weren't a lot of bands doing that. Again, it was a little bit after when Type Bros from way back when were doing it, who also did it great, but it was all either a little too late or a little too early, depending on who you ask, But like anyone that went was like, wow, that was a kick-ass rock and roll show. Jared Warren is an incredible front man and singer. Beyond, like is amazing. But yeah, I feel like the cycle of rock is back, everybody, was not centering that kind of rock. It was it was sort of like this kind of like okay. This is what we're focusing on now, huh?
Yeah, I mean, what it seemed to be focusing on, and oh man, through all the years that we were a band, we wound up playing with so many bands, but at that time, what they were focusing on was like, at least mainstream wise, was like Wolf Mother. That was like The Rock and Jet, like and that was what you were hearing on the radio, right? Yeah. And we wound up playing with both of those bands. At one point, it's like, and it was like, that was the rock that was sort of being, I don't know, featured on the radio. Like, there was terrestrial radio at the time. There was K-Rock.
It was like the last gasp of that before. And
that's right.
Kind of changed everything.
Yep.
And it was sort of like, oh, hey, do you like these things? Because these things sound like those things. So you must like this, right? It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
No. Not really. No, but okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have those records too, man. You know.
It's like,
yeah, and there's something I don't know. Something I find very offensive about that, and then now it's I mean like whatever. Nobody like the idea of anybody caring about that is like laughable. But it's like all right, you know what was it? Greta Von Fleet. It was like
oh yeah,
whatever.
Yeah.
Looks like they're having fun. Good for them. You know.
Yeah.
No one's forcing it on me. I don't have to listen to it. I don't.
Yeah. No. I.
It's like what if Led Zeppelin was made for dentist's office? Okay. Sure.
Right. I try. I really do try, like not to be an asshole and dismissive about shit. But I heard them and I was like, I've heard this before.
Yeah, no, it sounds like something else, right? And it was like it's not like as an influence. Like, no, this literally sounds like something.
Yes, exactly. For me, it did, and then I was like, all right, I've heard all I need to hear. I think
it's enough.
That's
and that happened. Dude, there's a band I saw where it's like I'm not gonna name them, but like it was like, oh, you sound exactly like the Birthday Party, except for one song that sounds like Grinder Man.
Oh, wow.
Which is like okay, and but like they weren't adding anything to it. I was just like, are you fucking kidding? And I was sitting there. I was there. I will name drop this. I was there with Keith Brammer of De Kreutzen, and I was like turning to him, and he's like, oh yeah, but and I was like, okay, all right. You know, it's not just me like being a jerk here. Because I'm like, look, they're one of my favorite bands too. But like, I'm not gonna try to like note for note. Like I was singing a Nick Cave vocal over one of their songs. You know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, that's that one. Okay, and people loved it. Kids could not care less. I'm like, all right.
Speaking of that, I remember this experience. We played in Athens, Ohio, like random show in Athens, Ohio. Mm-hmm. Very early on, probably before Hee Saw Dhuh Kaet, probably before that came out. And I'm sitting there, and I remember distinctly going, "Oh shit, this is Caress by by Jehu."
By Jehu,
yeah. I was like, holy shit, this is the exact it was the exact song,
right?
And I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, what's going on here? Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, those experiences are, I don't know. You have to bring something new to it.
I mean, you would hope, right? And it's just, but I guess it's just like, I don't know. There's people that their bands are it's like, oh, you do like the one thing the Melvins do or the one thing the Jesus Lizard does. Okay, it's like they do like 20 things, but you're doing one of the things they do. So
right.
I guess
and I think about I think for a while, and Steve actually spoke to this in the documentary. We were sort of tagged with the Jesus Lizard thing,
right?
And I was like, all right, I get it, but like, I don't know, like we weren't really. I personally wasn't listening to a lot of Jesus Lizard at the time that we made or wrote those particular songs. Like it was sort of after that I became a huge Jesus Lizard fan. But it's like one of those things, like even with our energy, you mentioned the birthday party. It's like, I think things are sort of like there's the birthday party. And then in some ways I think of Yow and Jesus Lizard. And then I don't know, like maybe we are a spawn of that in some way. Like there's this kind of like, and everyone's doing their own thing, or at least I'd like to think.
And look, it's absolutely fine. Like, dude, I had Phil covered on the show, and I had Mick Harvey on where I punish him about a bunch of like birthday party stuff. I was like, really? You want to talk about that? It's like, yes, I fucking do. Like one of my favorite bands.
Oh yeah.
And they were both very, very gracious with their time on that. But it's also like it's weird to hear when things are deployed in a certain Scratch Acid, right? Scratch Acid. Like they're very birthday party-ish, but it's also like demented surf guitar. So how is it not going to be compared to the birthday party, right? Brad Bradford has a unique style that is like just that guy. He's the only guy. Like he's not doing a Rowan S. Howard. It's definitely just Brett Bradford. But if you don't have that lexicon, you're like, oh, it's like they're doing like Texas birthday party. Well, yeah, a little bit, but like it's its own deal too at the same time. And I heard the thing with the Jesus Lizard. It's like, well, anytime you hear like that kind of bass sound, like locked in with the drums in that way, and then like the singer's going nuts, like it's sort of like there's a certain there's going to be a certain sort of shorthand for that, right? And there's my old band used to get compared to Shellac all the time, and I used to be like, "This worse things to be compared to than geniuses." Okay.
Sure, absolutely.
I didn't hear it. I was like, I hear more Steel Ball Bathtub personally, but okay, whatever.
Yeah,
It was good on you.
I know you've had him on the show a few times. I got a good slap in the face once from David Yow. He slapped
Did you?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think I was.
What a card.
I want to say I was 19.
Uh-huh.
It was the first time I saw Jesus Lizard.
Yeah.
Went to see them with our guitar player John, and I think it's probably, I want to say like 96, maybe, could have been 97, maybe 96. I went and saw them. We wound up at the same bar in New York City that they were afterwards, coincidentally.
Oh wow. Okay.
And again, it was one of those things for us where we didn't know them. Like we were still a very young band and hadn't met a lot of people in music, or like, I'm going to call it a scene or community or whatever. And like, John was like, I dare you to go up to him, because again, his persona at the time, I was like, holy shit, like, look at this guy on stage. And like,
he's a maniac.
I was like, yeah, he's a maniac. And John was like, go up to him, talk to him. And I was, again, a little intimidated by it. And so I was like, I'm going to go up and buy him a drink. And I was like, hey man, I want to buy you a drink, and bought him a drink. He asked me what my name was. I told him. And then I'll never forget what I said to him. I'll never forget it. Probably a really dumb thing to say to somebody. I was like, I really enjoy your work. And he was like, my work. And he just like the Rick James, Charlie Murphy slap.
Right.
We were at the bar. It was there was this bar called Max Fish, and it was like brightly lit in the city on the Lower East Side. And it was like one of those things where the bar is just, it was always lit. Like it was not a dim place. Yeah. And he just like came over and like, well, bam, and he nailed me hard. And like, I was so like disoriented and didn't know what to do and sort of embarrassed.
Yeah.
And it was just like, I don't even think I said anything to him afterwards. I was like,
what are you going to say? Thank you, sir. May I have another? Like, what are you going to say? I mean, like,
I don't know. I was trying to like, all right, nice meeting you, or something like that. And walked off between with my tail between my legs.
Yeah, enjoy your night.
And John, he fucking loved it. He loved it.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, if it's not you, it's hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Many
wild card.
Yeah. Many years later, I talked to him about that.
Yeah. Did he remember it?
Like, he didn't remember it. But so it was a Melvin show, actually. I flew down to see the Melvins when they were playing when Jared and Cody were in.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that line.
And Henry Owens from Chunklet was putting on a show, and David Yow was sang some songs.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And so I approached him after the show, and I said, I don't know, a long time ago, like I think I was seeking some closure, or or some reparative experience.
Yeah, exactly. You need to move past it.
I was like, it was many years later, probably close to 10. And I said, hey man, I came up to you at a show when I was like 19 or 20, and I said this to you. And he's like, oh man, I'm sorry. Like, I don't remember that. And then he like moved in to like hug me, and then stepped back and slapped me across the face again.
What a prince.
Yeah, right? And that time, like, I wasn't.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And I was like, this motherfucker, I can't believe, like, I think I did feel like Charlie Murphy in that moment. I was like, I can't believe he did this to me again.
Yeah, exactly.
And I slapped him back, and I felt I slapped him back, and then like we kind of looked at each other, and then we hugged, and it was all good, and that was that. And I felt like, all right, we're good. Like this is fine. It felt pretty reparative for me.
Yeah. Fantastic. Love it.
Yeah, totally. It was fucking wonderful. But yeah, so
damn. All right, so amazing sidebar. Again, cul-de-sacs can be lovely if you let them be.
Yeah. Great.
So on top happens. You know, you're in your. That's when you guys kind of.
So that.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's when we hook up with. That's when we record with Steve for the first time.
Right.
Yeah.
So, again, pretty good if you're a rock band. You know, he's getting good.
Yeah, we were so excited. We were so excited to record with him, and it was everything that we wanted it to be. We felt like, you know, we went into that recording like really ready. We booked, I think, 7 days with him, and then we wound up doing the 8th on his birthday, and it just went really smoothly after that first day. And the cool thing about it was like, we were all able to realize like how much of a lover of rock that Steve was too.
Yeah.
And I think it was sort of like this combination of like, I think he understood, or I'd like to think like where we were coming from as a band, like musically, like, you know, obviously Shellac did the AC/DC cover, right? And in Electrical, on one of the windows, there's the Van Halen Wings, like on the window, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, and so in like talking about music, we sort of got that sense too. And it was just a really awesome experience for us. We learned a lot.
Well, and
making that record.
In retrospect, I do think it's actually probably your best record too. Like, I mean, it's like overall, like just like pound for pound, like it's all there, and including, you know, the hilarious song titles too, which again, sometimes off-putting for people, but you know, I'm a deep appreciator of that. Where it's like, no, it doesn't. I mean, the music is very serious. Like it's not. It's
I think they got a little bit more sort of absurd over time, but like that was a thing about the.
No, but look again. I love it, but you're never.
But like you know, I think people sometimes who didn't know the band or had never seen the band, they would see the titles and think like, you know, we were like making fun or poking fun,
right?
And we weren't.
Not at all. Yeah, no.
Like, and we always considered song titles another piece of art in the whole process. Like, there was the album art and there was the music, but the song and the lyrics, but the song title itself, even if it wasn't connected to the lyrics, could be its own little piece of art or creativity, right? And so, you know, that was part of it too. And they were a lot of times things that we heard or things that we said or an inside joke, right? Like Stairway to the Freebird on the way to the Smoky Water, right? Like,
right. Yeah.
Okay. Like when we wrote that song, we were like, oh wow, this sounds like pretty classic rock, the riff. It's like, that's pretty classic rock influence, right? And so then it becomes sort of this like, oh, like, you know, someone would make a joke about it. It's like Stairway to the Freebird.
You're the first ones to the gate to kind of like make it, again, acknowledge that without making it into like parody or anything along those lines.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you're making an acknowledgement that like, it's very classic rock sounding. You know.
Yeah. You know, and the music itself was obviously very serious and done in earnest for sure.
Well, it's a very good, it's a well sequenced record too. Like there's a good flow to it. Like it's something where, like sometimes, you know, there's even records I love where it's like, oh, it's so front loaded, like it's like exhausting. Like you get to the point where you're like, oh my god, all right, enough. When's it going to be over? You know, I love this. When's it going to be over? And and I think it's actually aged very well too. Like I think that if you like listen to it, and again, part of that's also just like with the recording, right? Like recording kick-ass band in a room sounding good. Turns out it's not going to sound dated. You know, who knew? Yeah. There's no auto tune on the vocals. You know, there's no freaking Phil Collins drum sounds. What if there was though? Wow, that'd be amazing. Yeah. So like, and that's sort of where, I mean, you guys kind of went deep at that point too, like where it's like, no, you're touring like crazy at this point.
Oh,
like, you're just like going for it. Like
that. That was the decision at that time. Like we were going to drop everything and just be a band. Yeah. That's all we were going to do. And, you know, speaking of this idea of like everyone just sort of moving in the same direction, it was like, no, this is what we're going to do. Even though we're going to be poor doing it and we don't have really the resources to do this, how the hell are we going to do this? No, we're going to do it anyway. Right. And I think part of it was too, at that time, we couldn't understand. I understand it better now, but we couldn't understand how like some of the bands that we were playing with or connected to or in the same scene with were getting so big. To us, what seemed like really big. Sure, and we're like, what the fuck are we doing wrong? Like, I think we're good, but I don't know. Maybe we suck. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, because it's like one of those things where, and you know, it's easy to understand in retrospect, right? But it's like, well, you know, you can do everything right, and it's just like the wrong time or something. And it doesn't mean that like what you did was invalid or like not worthy. It just means that like the situation was not in place for things to fall that way. It just kind of seemed like that happened to you guys a lot, though.
It did.
Where it's like, oh, like
it definitely
a little more than some bands, and you know,
yeah. But I think we were like also, at least I was making these unfair comparisons because at the time, like before On Top, you know, you wind up on these shows, and I think this still happens where it's like, well, back then, like, you know, an emo band, a hardcore band, and you know, like we were comparing ourselves to bands in terms of how big they were getting, like, you know, to like a band like The Promise Ring. Like, how are they huge? I don't know if you remember that band.
Oh,
but like,
I remember well. Yes.
Yeah. We were like,
yes, I dated girls in the 2000s. I remember The Promise Ring. Yes.
Right. And we were like, you know, so you wind up and like, we knew those guys pretty well, or the Cap'n Jazz guys. Like, we stayed with them, and like, and those bands were getting like, not Cap'n Jazz because they had folded by that point, but like, you know, Davey goes on to do The Promise Ring, and it's like some of the bands is like, whoa, these bands are getting huge. What do we? And then we were like, oh, right, we don't appeal to like a certain demographic either. We don't appeal to maybe certain women either. You know, like these comparisons that we were making just weren't. We couldn't understand why bands were getting really big, and our deal was like, all right, maybe we just need to get on the road and tour all the time and just do this all the time, and let's see what happens. You know, like,
because it was a pretty immediate live show. It's sort of like you don't need to have any frame of reference or like CV to understand like this is just a great rock show. Like if you're into good shows, that is what's going to be happening now. Like this is, you know, going to be relentless rock and roll fury for the next, like, you know, 30 to 40 minutes or whatever, you know.
And I think I'd like to think it did sort of catch the eye of like a lot of people. I mean, we did tour relentlessly. I think one of those years, I don't know if it was 2002, maybe, we were probably on the road like 8 months out of that year. Like we were just pounding the pavement and like just doing it. Yeah, it was a lot. And it was great. You know, and that's how we got to meet a lot of the bands too, that and people that we, you know, became close with over the years, or like helped us out in some ways, or like oh, they think our band is good. Like that's kind of a little bit of a mind fuck for us.
Yeah, it's like a vote of confidence, right? Where you're like, oh,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
like you get to play with Queens of the Stone Age, and they think you guys are cool, and they're gonna put you in front of like a massive audience. You know, great.
Yeah, like that. Came a little bit later at the sort of the tail end of the On Top stuff, and that was a little bit of a mind fuck too.
Because that's a different level.
That was a whole different level.
for
us. Because we were hearing them on the radio, terrestrial radio.
Of course you were. Yeah.
You know, they had Songs for the Deaf had hits that were being played on the radio.
Absolutely.
And then all of a sudden, I don't even know how we wound up on their radar. I don't. But they picked us to do that tour with them, and it was just amazing. Like, whoa, okay. Like previous to that, we had toured with Mars Volta, which also like put us in front of a lot of people.
Sure, of course, yeah.
But like we hadn't really met those guys from at the drive-in. We had played with them once, but our real connection was John Theodore.
Who's amazing. And the only time I ever saw Mars Volta was when he was playing with them, actually. Yeah. It was like real early on. So
John
great drummer.
Yeah, we toured with Golden. John was in Golden.
Golden is so cool. Yeah, forget about Golden. Yeah.
So I wish more people knew about that band because they're incredible. But like, had Phil from Trans Am in it.
Phil, as I was gonna say, I think the only time it's come up with the show when Phil Manley's been on.
Let that Golden has come up.
Yeah. Unless I just happen to remember them randomly, I'm like, oh yeah, let me throw that record on.
Yeah, we toured with them, but John Theodore was always a real champion for our band. Like always, it's like, oh, you should go check Rye out, and like, we still communicate with John like fairly regularly. Like, he's doing the whole Queens thing now, and like he
has been for a while.
Yeah.
He's a dude I would love to have in the show, but I don't think he would do it.
You don't think so?
Podcast. No, I heard a friend of friend is like he had a bad experience on a podcast.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, well, mine's good. I don't know what I don't know what he's doing, but
agreed.
More than
agreed.
I would love. Let's put it on the universe. I would love to have John Theodore on. I'm a big fan of that.
Good dude.
That guy's mad interesting, and like, I think that'd be a good talk. Maybe I can save him. I can fix him.
I'll see if I can convince him. I had a great experience, man. You should fucking do it.
I mean, look, it has literally happened before, and I'm not going to say with who or narc anyone out, but I was like, wow, really? You're gonna? Oh, okay, great. I do this show all the time. You know where to find me.
Yeah. He's such a like a really obviously an amazing talented musician, but also just a really kind and approachable guy, and he's
someone that's going to advocate for the things he loves too, which that's I think something gets lost in the sauce of people trying to find the recipe for success or whatever. It's like, well, you need people that like don't just like you, but they're advocating for you. They're going out of their way when they're the person in the room to be like, oh, you really need to consider this band. They're awesome.
He definitely did that. I mean, in terms of like, regardless of the way that it went in the end, like I think John had something to do with like us winding up on DreamWorks. Like he was out in LA at the time, connected to like a lot of people, and he did talk up the band, which
invaluable.
Like, just a really solid, fucking good dude.
Well, and most people don't do that.
No.
I mean, I do, but I'm built different. And also I talk a lot, so people only listen to about like a tenth of what I say. But it's, it was something where it was like, oh, wow, Rye's, this is it. They're going big time. Like, this is going to be like, and by big time, it'd be like the Queens of the Stone Age thing, where it's like, wow, this deeply weird band is somehow popular now. Cool.
Yeah.
Compliment intended, like where it was like, oh, wow, I can totally see that happening with Rye. That'd be amazing.
Yeah. I that period is such a strange time, the way all of that happened. I remember being approached at a show in Brooklyn about it. Like the guy who signed us showed up at a show in Brooklyn, and said he was interested in the band, and we were about to leave for tour, and it was like, oh, you know, what is it? It felt like that was never a possibility. And at that point, you know, all I think we wanted to do was be able to, and I've heard folks, probably more particularly Jesus Lizard talk about this, like Dwayne Dennison particularly talk about this. It's like, we just wanted to be able to make a living and play music because we loved to play music.
Yes.
Like there was never this delusion of like fucking being a huge band on the radio, right? Like we weren't that band, but if we could
make do the work, living, play cool shows, and you know, if you make a living, amazing. That, you know, not like be eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches every day. My necessity, right? You know. We loved what we did, and you know, that's why we fucking do it, right? Like, and loved each other, and that's, it was like, all right, like, fuck, we had already been a band at that point for probably 10 years, right? It's like, it wasn't like, you know, we're an overnight or even a two-overnight success. Like, we're fucking, we had been at it for a long time. Well, and there's, you know, there's something that it's like, be like, oh yeah, they go for it, they do it. And it's like, well, yeah, but like, they could do it better if they had some resources as well. You know, like, it's like, it's not coming out of nowhere. And people, I think, don't, well, and a lot of times, ironically, goes back to the David Yow story, because people don't consider music work. And I don't know, for some people, maybe it's you know, it's not, but I feel like almost all the time it is. And is it very fulfilling work? Yes. Is it the best job you could ever have? Goddamn right it is.
Fuck yeah. 100%.
But the fact that, you know, like, until you get a certain level, the band's always the last to get paid. You know, you got the sound guy, like the door guy is getting some, and they're all guaranteed to get it. Well, what about the band? Oh yeah, well, you know, fuck them. Okay.
Yeah.
You know? It's horrendous, and it's only because we as a culture, we've accepted this, you know, temporarily embarrassed superstar framing from like Almost Famous and stuff, where it's like, unless it's a band you've heard of, like, they don't deserve support.
Right.
Like, that's insane. That's like,
it is insane.
Like, we somehow have a lexicon for like working comedians that are applying their trade and they're just doing good work, but we don't have that still for bands, and it's weird to me. It's definitely weird when I have these conversations in person as well with people who have the coffers. Like, well, all right, here's what it costs to get it for us to get here. You know, like, here's the cost of where we're staying tonight. You know, like, it's like come on, man. Like, we all know this. We're all adults.
Yeah. I mean, it's rough out there.
So the idea of like, and again, you guys come in at the tail end of even that being a possibility of there being like any money on the table, where it's like, okay, you can hire big name producer Dave Grohl to, you know, freaking produce the record.
So like, even that, we were on tour with Queens at that time, where we were like, we were, I don't think we had signed yet, but we were pretty confident that was going to happen. And our initial thought was like people who we wanted to record with, right? You know, and a lot of people who had like recorded like classic rock stuff had come up.
Sure, yeah. What's Tony Visconti up to? Great, you know, like, yeah.
And then someone had actually brought up, well, you know, and I don't think he had really produced anything yet. Josh Homme from Queens.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And I think it was Herb who said, well, why not Dave Grohl? And that seemed like just like an impossibility. And, you know, then we wound up on a phone call with him, probably a few weeks after getting off tour. And I guess he had some time on his hands. He had heard of the band. He had heard On Top. And he was like, yeah, let's fucking do it. And I was like, you know, and it's like, at that time, it was like, well, how do we, your fucking judgment. I think our judgment at the time was just like what? This fucking rock star wants to make a record, and it's not like he didn't have any cred,
well, sure, yeah, exactly. It's like, this is forever going to be the guy that played drums in Nirvana, arguably played drums in Queens of the Stone Age at one of their best eras,
right?
Like timeless records.
Yeah.
Think of say what you will about the Foo Fighters. It's like, it doesn't even matter if you like it or not. They're a gigantic rock band that's beloved by middle managers worldwide.
True.
Coming up next week, Dave Grohl.
So I mean, like the whole thing from getting signed to, all right, making a record with that dude. It's like it didn't seem like any of it was real, and then it wasn't real. And and it happened. We were on 3 labels during the course of making that record.
It's so bizarre.
DreamWorks folded while making the record. We wound up, because DreamWorks was on DGC for like a few weeks, and then we were on Interscope.
Right.
And then everyone at DreamWorks was gone. We were just an asset, I guess, or not an asset.
Well, and then people are looking at it like, who are these guys? What's this like?
Exactly.
What are we doing with this?
And then, the major, which I think is ultimately a really good thing, the major record industry just collapsed. It just, like that was when digital, you had LimeWire, you had
music became free, basically.
Music became free.
Now an entire generation has grown up with it being free, so it's like nothing new under the sun. But it's like, no, that was a revolutionary concept at the time. Like, you could go out and like sell CDs, and because if you put on a great show, people will buy the CD because they would maybe never hear this band ever again if they didn't buy it right then and there. And the immediacy of that, filled a lot of gas tanks.
Yes. Like, I think about it now, and I sort of like really wonder about your experience or other bands' experiences who are really active right now. And just like, we feel like, even with this single coming out, or I hear things about other bands and how things are done. I don't know if you know this skit. Phil Hartman did this skit on Saturday Night Live way back when, called Unfrozen Caveman Lawyer.
Oh, of course, yeah. I'm just a caveman.
Exactly.
Loud noises confuse and disorient me.
That's how we fucking feel a lot of the times. Like, Unfrozen Caveman Lawyer. We're like, wait, this is how it works now?
Yeah.
Wait, how do you get this song up onto Spotify? Like, clueless.
Yeah.
Like, really clueless. I'm kind of a little embarrassed to say that, but it's true. It is just a whole different model, obviously.
And it's all just like a flying circus of nonsense too, where it's like, oh, you basically have to be an influencer now. Like, that's not even like an option not to be. Like, if you want anyone to see anything about what your band does, including the music that they may eventually possibly listen to like 5 seconds distracted of, it's a hellscape without end.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And there's some downsides too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's not all peaches and cream.
Like, I'm certainly the worst one out of our band to talk to, because I'm the only one who's not on social media by choice.
You're so much better off, man. Don't ever do it. Don't ever. It ain't worth it, man. I'm not even kidding.
I feel like my mental health is better for it, but
oh yeah, absolutely. I mean,
yeah, it's been about like 5 years now, I think. So I'm like really dated. I've never been on Instagram. Like, someone's like, oh, they'll share this with me, and then I'll have to go like on the link, and then it asks
you to sign up, and
and I'm like, all right. And thankfully, I'm able to sort of resist that. But yeah, I don't know how any of it works.
I mean, unfortunately, there's a certain necessity for active creative concerns to engage with it, but it's totally trash. It's all trash from the trash can. Sorry, peace and love in my heart, but it's terrible, and it's getting worse somehow. I thought it was really bad before. Somehow it's getting worse. Okay, well, Don't worry. There's always some new lows. Don't stress about it.
Yeah.
All right. So, yeah, man. So, and one I should mention, I want to give a shout out for Jersey Girls too, because I like that one a lot.
Oh, thanks, man.
I think that's underrated, and a lot of times people kind of forget it exists, and as well.
Yeah. So that was actually, some of that was recorded at the same time as On Top.
Yeah.
We went back to Steve and finished that up. There were songs that we just didn't get to finish in time.
Yeah.
And then I think threw a couple of new ones in when we went back that second time. But yeah.
Good stuff.
I'm proud of the stuff on that record too. I think it's a solid record.
So Curses, like, what happens there? Like, so you make the record, and like you get buffeted around like a pinball between these different places, and then eventually it gets ostensibly released to nobody, like every other indie record.
Yeah, so we probably finished it, I want to say in 2003, maybe late 2002.
Yeah, and it took like a couple of years before it came out, right? I mean, I remember it seemed like forever.
So the story on that is this: by the time we were on Interscope, the way that it was told to us, because we were never allowed to be in these meetings, was that they played the songs that they thought were the hits off that record, the hits.
Sure, the hits. Sure,
right,
yeah. right.
And there was a meeting with Jimmy Iovine, the head of Interscope, and these are the hits. And the quote that we got back, I kid you not, I don't know if he really said it, but the quote that we got back was, "They haven't written their dirty deeds yet."
Yeah. Okay.
And he said that they need to go back and write more songs. And we said, okay.
Love to hear non-creative people give that advice, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah. So we were pissed, and we
sure, understandably.
We were also really stubborn, because we got to where we were for the most part without ever having management, without ever having a booking agent. We did everything ourselves, even up until we did have one booking agent along the way. And that's not to say that people didn't help. People help, right? They book shows and they're supportive and let you stay. But so much of it was on our own.
Yeah.
And so this guy's like, there's not a hit yet. You haven't written your dirty deeds. And so we went back, and this is the truth. We mapped out, because we're assholes, we mapped out the song structure for Dirty Deeds.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's this many measures, it does this here.
Yes. Yeah. I think we did it for one other AC/DC song too. And we said, all right.
Yeah, sure.
This is what you want.
Give some choices.
We'll give you two more.
Yeah.
And we turned those in, and he said, nope, not yet. They need to keep writing. And then we said, we're not doing it. You have the album. It's done. This is what it is. We're not writing any more songs. And from that point, it was a stalemate. And we weren't going to budge, and neither were they. And then it took our lawyer 2 years to get us out of that contract.
Which in the world of music is like 2 decades,
Yeah, we were paralyzed. We couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
It was like we didn't have any money. We didn't have any jobs.
Yeah.
And so it was a really just depressing time. And then we finally got the record back and brought it back to our old label that we started with and said, will you put this out? And he was like, sure. And we're like, all right, we'll put the record out. But we were so beat up at that point. I'd just been through the fucking ringer.
Yeah, that's a demoralizer for sure. And that's,
yeah.
There's the thing where it's like, I have enough character. I don't need any more character building exercises.
Yeah.
Especially when you've been a band for a while. And especially when you when you go for it and you really go for it and like you give it your best faith effort, and then it's just you come up short, right? And it's like, oh.
Yeah,
through like nobody's malfeasance, just like that's just the way it's like, oh, okay, well,
yeah.
It's not sustainable unless if you have like a real human life outside of playing music, then it's not sustainable, right?
No, I mean, with all due respect to Steve, and I love him like dearly, like he was able to have the career that he did being an engineer, right? And still do shellac at sort of like at his pace or at their leisure, which is an amazing privilege to have. Like, we didn't have that privilege, and most bands don't have that privilege.
Well, and he had that because he's Steve Albini, just like how like Ian MacKaye has it the same level of privilege of like any Ian MacKaye band can play any city, anywhere in the world, and people will come out to see it.
Yep.
And most people do not have that.
No.
And I'm not saying he hasn't earned it. I'm not saying like he doesn't need that. But it's like, no, you walked into it like, you walked into like a fully built house practically, as far as that goes. All you had to concern yourself with was the art piece of it. Great. I long for that. That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And I'm glad to have you bring that up, because it's like, again, these icons, these like, great people. It's like, well, they're wouldn't take an ounce of respect off their name, but it's a different situation when you don't have that. You don't have a safety net. You don't have like a back. I mean, everybody. There's gonna be a 15-year-old kid discovering Minor Threat like tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right. And will be until the end of time. And
I think that beyond that, like we all came from like working class, like lower middle class families. Like it just wasn't a possibility, and so it was like picking up the pieces of our lives at that point and figuring out what the fuck are we gonna do.
I gotta get a job now, and probably figure out a place to live that's not this disheveled nightmare.
Yeah, like I need to figure out what I'm gonna do with the rest of my life, right? What am I gonna do now? Like, I still want to play music, but I've sort of learned at this point, like, it is not a stable way of living, like over the long term, this is not going to be stable, financially stable, or in other ways provide for stability in my life, and I think like, I was able to play music after that, and thankfully be able to record the Steve again after that.
Sure, because you got the Cold First stuff, right? Which is great. Like, that's awesome. That's, and that definitely was like, oh, these are guys that are just doing it to do it. Like, there's no nobody thinks they're going to be a superstar off of that or anything, right? It's just like, no, I like making music and with my friends,
Yeah, that interestingly enough was a kind of a Tim Green, speaking of like, him kind of schooling or like being like, here, check these bands out.
The Want, right? That was
being at his house, he's like, oh, check this record out. And I literally thought when I heard that Want record, Dave will say the same thing. I thought
it sounds like something from the 70s. Yeah.
I was like, how? He was like, no, man, this is like current. I was like, wait, what?
It's like out of time.
Yeah. And then being like, holy shit, this is really good. And then eventually hooking up with those guys because they lived in Staten Island. Like, and the ability to play with those guys who are really good players, like just solid musicians, just fucking solid.
Yeah, I like that stuff. I wish I'd got the chance to see it, but I think Brian Musikoff, I think, is the one who turned me on to Cold Fur, if I remember correctly. Shout out to Brian Musikoff, who's probably going to listen to this episode. So shout out to you. Missed us in San Diego, fucker. Anyway, he moved to San Diego, and he missed us.
Man.
But yeah, that Cold Fur. I mean, because it was one of those things where it's like, oh, Black Holidays is cool. Like all the Rye family of bands are all like, it's all like cool stuff. But I do like that shifting to the model. Well, it was originally for for the birthday show that you guys kind of got back together the first time, right? Which was and like it's a very heartwarming story in the documentary. You know, it's a very kind of cool. And then also like you get both Greg and Dave both playing drums. Awesome. You know, that's cool. That's like really neat. It's like neat to see it all come together that way. I think without all the, for lack of a better term, BS.
Yeah. So it's it was Dave. Yeah, it was Dave's son Casey's birthday. I can't remember which year it was. And Rick Froberg happened to be at that birthday. It was outside.
Awesome.
And still at that point, I couldn't bring myself to go talk to him. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, he might slap you.
Right? Yeah, he could slap me. He could slap me too. But yeah, Jack, Dave's dad, was going to turn 80. No, not 80, 70, maybe 70. And he was like, you know, my one wish is for Rye to get back together and play a show. And it was like, well, you don't say no to Jack.
Yeah, I mean, that's a wish that's totally achievable. That isn't like, you know, I want a golden palace floating in the clouds. It's like, no, we're playing rock and roll music. It's achievable.
Yeah.
We can do it.
And so, yeah, that was like a wonderful show and a wonderful thing to be able to do, because I think that was a really, as corny as this may sound, like healing for us too, to play on the stage together again, or to like get in a rehearsal space together again and do that. I think was really good for all of us, you know. Yeah, and it let us know we could do this again if we want to, like, you know, where before it seemed like an impossibility after things fell apart.
Because it opens up the possibility of like what it could look like. As like not a making it your entire life.
Yeah,
proposition.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And then also I can only imagine also, you know, just being like, oh yeah, these songs are fun to play. And like, this is the thing that we do and it's good.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, you know, playing Maxwell's and Hoboken was still around at that point, and it was like kind of playing on our own turf and having people come out.
That place was such a treasure, man.
Yeah, it was such a great venue. I've seen so many good shows at that place. But yeah, be able to, you know, people being so excited and being like, oh wow, people are excited to actually see us play together. After feeling like, you know, pretty shitty for a long time about how things ended. Because
you're only thinking of like the most negative aspects and attributes of it, rather than well, and it's a lot of times it's something that happens in secret, right? Like it's people, you put this stuff out in the world, and like it's almost like a message in a bottle, and you're like, well, maybe people will discover that, maybe they won't, you know. And people find it in the craziest, most insane, inscrutable ways, like you don't understand. And it doesn't matter if you understand it or not, because they get to engage with the art, and they engage with it as if it's real time.
Yeah, especially back in the 90s, man. Like, and certainly prior to that, right? But like, I think back at that time and the way things were sort of done, tours were booked, and, you know, people got their hands on certain records, and it's just like, shit, man, that's such a beautiful thing when I think back on it. I'm like,
yeah, like, how did anybody find out about anything? Like,
right.
I couldn't even tell you.
No.
And like have really, like some freak that's like pushing. You gotta listen to this. Okay, fine, I'll check it out. Yeah, and then it's
like you would hear, some mixtape someone would play for you, or like your friend would make, or you know, say, oh, you need to really fucking listen to this.
Yeah.
Or you know, somebody, some dude, some fucking girl putting on a show, and like. Like just there's not much in it for them either, you know, like back then.
Yeah.
You know, like
not so much now either. That part hasn't got much better.
It hasn't changed that much, huh?
Nope, not really. No, but it's like it's people doing it for lack of a better term, like for love of the game, right? Because it's something where the music has been so important to them, has changed their lives in such intrinsic and important ways that it's a way of giving back, and it's a way of paying that forward as well as paying it back.
Yeah. I'm so, but especially now, I think I have more gratitude now for so many of the people along the way that like gave a shit about our band or let us stay with them, or like who didn't know us from Adam. Like it's just like,
but it's that,
like,
but it's that thing. Even if you don't, from the people from this world, even if you don't know them, you know them. You kind of do.
Yeah.
It's not that different. Every once in a while there'll be that kind of like, wow, what's up with the bass player or whatever? Like, what's his deal? But like for the most part, it's all the same. In a good way. I mean, everybody's like living this weird, unnatural life that, there's like a rhythm to it. There's, there's ups and downs. There's an ebb and flow. Everyone's you're going to be different cycles of being able to stand the people that they're playing in a band with. If he says this one more time, I swear I'm going to push him outside the van. Or so I hear. Anyway, that's rumor has it.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
So there is that shorthand, and that's something where it doesn't go away either. And it's those are connections that can be like lifelong friendships, or single serving friendships,
Yeah. It's interesting. We've like in this past year, there's been some of our earlier stuff that hasn't been released digitally coming out.
I've noticed that, it's seen like sort of like on the streamers, right? Like the real early, like the like comp stuff and the real early stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, what? There's no Rye Coalition release. I'm like, oh wait, that's old as hell. I have that on tape.
Yeah, like our right. Yeah, like our demo came out digitally, I don't know, maybe a month or so ago. And a lot of that stuff is being digitally reissued, and it's going to be put out on vinyl too.
Nice. That's exciting.
Like it's cool. The Numero group is like putting that stuff out.
Which they've done so much great archival stuff.
Yeah.
That's really cool to hear that.
I mean, all that, it's so crazy. We were talking about Unwound, I think maybe prior to getting on, and like it's a really kind of, I went out to see them in Jersey City, and like there were a shit ton of young people there. Like
the kids love Unwound. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I was like, oh man, this is great, but it was something I did not expect. Right. And it's like, it is wild. And a bunch of their stuff has been reissued through like Numero. And so like, it's bittersweet, but I'm happy that they're getting the recognition that they certainly deserve.
And it's weird because there's some bands that are also just lost the time too. It's like, why don't people talk more about,
oh man,
whatever. Like it doesn't matter like what it is. And then some bands are just like, Unwound is like one of the ones that, they came back, and like there's a whole new generation that never got to engage with them as a live band. Amazing. I love that experience for everybody. It's great.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I play music. I'm never going to short sell Unwound. Come on, what are we doing here? Like it's fucking amazing. Yeah.
I'm always I'm always mystified by like sometimes like which bands it's like, man, like their resurgence is like huge right now, and then other bands where I'm like, damn it, how are they not? I don't understand.
Why is this not? This is huge to me.
Like, I don't understand this.
Yeah. It doesn't seem to be if we can crack the case on this show, we'd be doing something really special. But I have no idea either. It's like I don't get it.
There may not be a lot of people who sort of agree with me on this. I think you might, but like, see, like, there's some bands where I'm like, oh yeah, I'll like listen to them, like more so than anything. Now I wind up, listening on streaming services. But like a band like, say for instance, like Six Finger Satellite, I'm like. They've always sort of, to me, been like this fucking underdog band, but I'm like, they should be so much fucking bigger.
Because like those songs are so catchy. They're insane.
Oh, man.
And like, there's nothing about it that should work, but they're so catchy. And like, it's one of those things where, And it goes back to like Shudder to Think having like a huge hit with X French T-shirt. It's like that's a weird ass song, man. That's a crazy song, like objectively nuts. The video's even crazier, and somehow that was like a minor hit on like MTV. I'm like, wow, crazy. Why couldn't that have happened at Six Finger Satellite? You know?
Yeah, I don't know, man.
I don't
You'll
know.
have to crack the code, man.
You'll
have to keep
get right on it. I'll get my cryptography books ready. I mean, it is weird how that works, though. I can't say I quite understand it, but you know, it's you gotta have it available for people to engage with it. You know, I think one of I'm literally wearing a Carp shirt. I keep running to kids. They're like, I love Carp, like my favorite band. I'm like, how the hell do you know who Carp is?
Right?
How? Like,
yeah.
And it's like, well, I mean, that's great. I mean, I love them too. Like, are you kidding me? Yeah, amazing. Let's talk about Carp. But yeah, I don't understand how you know this, because it's not even like up on the stream. I think it's finally. I think Jared finally put up on Bandcamp, but it's like, you know, the K Records stuff has been like in a weird limbo for like what seems like centuries, and it's like, well, no one's gonna be able to discover it if they can't engage with it, and whether I like it or not, I don't. Streaming services is how people discover music, you know. So
Yeah.
But I get it, dude. When somebody like records a record and is like, I'm just gonna put it on Bandcamp only, I'm like, wow, that's awesome. I hope the book you write in the woods is amazing. You know.
Well, let me. Wasn't the Shellac stuff not on Spotify for a while? It was, right?
And then so they had it taken down off Spotify specifically, and then there was some clause that like when in case of death that it would be okay to put back.
Okay.
Like, okay. So now it's back
there. Yeah, I remember all of a sudden like seeing it. I'm just being like, oh, it's back, or you know, it's available or whatever.
Yeah, and it's so tough because it's like, well, it's almost as if like having the entirety of music available to you at a monthly fee is somehow unfair to artists. I don't know. It's a wild idea, but that platform especially is one of the most odious. By the way, Protonic Reversal available on Spotify. As well as my entire catalog.
Yeah, I mean,
what am I gonna say? I mean,
it's it just is
what it is.
Probably worse in many ways, but like, you know, just another way where the musician, the artist gets fucked in the end, right?
Yeah, the last one to get paid, exactly. When it's,
you know, it's like, and
the cartoon moth comes out of the pocket when they try to pull the money out. I'm like, oh, come on.
Yeah, it's just pretty unbelievable. You know, it's like when you see what people get for streaming services, it's like, all right, I can't. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I know. I mean, he's getting slapped in the face by David Yow. Seem like small potatoes by comparison. It's like,
oh yeah, absolutely.
Jesus Christ.
Way more insulting the way I get treated by Spotify.
Exactly, and that's with some degree of regularity. Let me tell you. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Ralph, I could literally do this all night, but I'm not going to.
Yes.
So you've got this paid in full. Tell me about the title.
Yeah. So paid in full is really related to like having a debt of gratitude to pay.
Got it.
And our way of paying this debt that we really do owe to these two amazing dudes, both Rick and Steve, but also to the music they created, both which Shellac and Big Black and Hot Snakes and Drive Like Jehu and Pitchfork, and like, you know, like just like they've given so much to us. Like there were a lot of memories, not even related to like them being in person with them, but so many memories that we have together that are related to the music that they made. You know, it's sort of like a kind of a soundtrack of a very early part of our lives as a band, and such an impactful time, like being teenagers too, when that first began to happen. You know, and so it's really just about paying this debt that we felt like is is sort of owed, and feel like a lot of bands and people owe to them. Like, you know, their influence is so wide reaching, and it affected so many people. And I think this is like our gesture of saying, like, hey, like, we hope that we did that at the time, or you knew that at the time, but like, thank you, right? Like, thank you for, we wouldn't have existed and sounded the way we did if it wasn't for your band. Like, and literally with Steve, like, our recordings or our band wouldn't have sounded this way.
You literally would have sounded the way they did. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Fantastic. No, that's a touching tribute, and it's lovely and unexpected. I mean, it just when I found out it existed, I was like, oh, huh, cool, right on. Yeah. I mean, it was like a pleasant surprise for once. You know, great. It's not like, who do we bomb today? Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, not to get into that at the at the tail end of the show, but
you can hit me with that at the end. Man.
Yeah, exactly. I can sum up the entire situation in Gaza now. Oh, well, that's all the time we got.
hit me with a clunker note at the very end.
Right, exactly. So, talk about sticking the landing. Nope. This is landing gear's broken, buddy. RyeCoalition.bandcamp.com. That's the where you can get Paid in Full Wingwalkers streaming now. Bullet Train to Vegas can be streaming later. I know that one of the variants has been sold out already for the 7-inch, but you also got like a test pressing up there, and it's good stuff, man.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Like, it came out today, and I was like, damn, it's gone. Like, I totally unexpected. I'm totally excited about that.
Any chance for any other Rye Coalition stuff?
Like I said, so there'll be some reissues that are coming out. And I think sort of anything is kind of a possibility in terms of what the future looks like music wise. I don't think anything is really off the table. We
except for writing the Dirty Deeds ripoff that the guy wrote.
Yeah, no, that will never happen. Never happen.
Amazing.
So we'll see. I mean, we clearly love each other and love playing together, and so I don't think anything's really off the table. The fact that we were able to pull this off, like,
exactly, amazing.
We're like, oh shit, like, this is a pretty good thing. Like, we'll see. You know,
all profits going to the Letters to Santa charity as well.
That was a charity that Steve started with his wife, Heather. And he actually told us about it back in 2001 when we were recording with him. Somehow the topic of the holidays came up. And he's like, I haven't really had a conventional Christmas in a long time. And I was like, well, what do you do on Christmas? And he told me that they go around delivering gifts. And this is before Letters has become what it's become. And like, you know, hearing it from him at the time was really touching too, because then we didn't know him that well. Yeah.
And you're like, I'm a steel worker. I kill what I eat guy. You know, it's like, what are you delivering presents to kids? What? Do they allow you to do that? Don't you have a restraining order? No, not really.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, you know, this guy had the persona very much in like what you read. Yeah. And then you're like, oh my God, like, he's a sweetheart. He's a fucking
turns out he's like a deeply humanistic, caring individual with massive amounts of empathy. And
yes. And so and so, it seemed just most appropriate to, you know, what probably the 7-inch will make. Hopefully it will eventually sell out or whatever, and we can give it to the Letters charity.
That's awesome. I love that.
Where it should go. Thanks, man.
Ralph, it's been a good time, man. Thanks.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. I loved it. I'm really happy to be on the show. Again, I am a fan. I listen.
I always love hearing about how great I am. So come back anytime. Look, I mean, all you guys, I would be glad to do an episode with every member of Rye Coalition. I'm a fan of what you guys did and do, and I kind of enjoy the Rashomon effect of hearing the same story told from different perspectives. You know, it's kind of nice sometimes, even if it's over the course of years and I can barely remember what was said the first time. But hey, It's,
I appreciate
it's the
you
internet.
having me.
It's all happening in real time, right?
Yeah.
Last question. You've heard the show, so you might have an indicator of what's going on. It's the only canned question they ever ask, and you can choose to interpret it however you like. Why do you do what you do?
Yeah. So I knew this question was coming, obviously. Things have come since, but I think the reason, if I'm thinking about it in terms of Rye, and that's how I'm going to interpret it for now, Rye is truly and those guys are like my first love and the thing that I've been most passionate about in my life. Like my fiance said to me, she heard me talking about it, and she's not from this world, right? Like she doesn't know much about my musical histories, doesn't listen to the same music. And she said, I feel like I'm the second love in your life. Like your first love was Rye. And, I've come in your life and like, I'm the second love in your life. Not that she's second, but like that was the thing that came previously. And I think it is really true. It's had such a deep impact on who I am and the way that I see the world and the people that I've connected to, and just the ability to connect with people like even you now. Like it's brought me so many good things in my life that I'm tremendously grateful for. And so that's why I don't know if it started out that way for me, but that's how I interpret it. Like I fucking love it. I love music.
Awesome. Ralph, thanks so much, man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
And
it's really cool to meet.
I'll make sure to throw the links in the show notes so everyone can find that record and sell that sucker out.
Thanks, man. Thank you so much for taking the time. It's been a real pleasure.
No,
likewise. All right, man.
Take care.
Yeah. Cool. Bye.
There he goes. There we go. That's Ralph. That's and what we're gonna do now is we're gonna hear the public at the time of this recording. The public song, which is the Shellac cover, Paid in Full. This is Wingwalker. Goes a little something like this.
Time was I could move my arms like a bird and she was a wingwalker.
All right, there you go. Wingwalker by Rye Coalition. That's probably the first time I've ever done a Shellac cover followed by a Shellac song to close the show. Wow, I just thought about that. That's wild. You can find that. Paid in Full is the name of that record. RyeCoalition.bandcamp.com. Backed with a version of Bullet Train to Vegas by the fantastic Drive Like Jehu. Available for order right now. You can get some vinyl. You can buy some digital. You know, all that stuff. You can listen to it for free and not give anybody any money if you feel so inclined, I guess, too. Anyway, I'd like to thank Ralph for coming on the show. Great times, as always. I had no doubt in my mind. Do not follow him on social media. He's not on it. He won't allow it. You can follow this show on social media, though, and all the normal things that, you can find those kinds of things at. This show airs normally Thursdays, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, 6 Mountain, 5 Pacific. That is not what's happening right now, and that is okay. I was seeing Devo. I didn't even mention that on air. Mention every other goddamn thing, but there you go. It's always free. ProtonicReversal.com for the archives, but if you want to support the show, $1 a month at Patreon.com/Protonic Reversal. Gets you advance access to episodes just like this one. And it helps support the show, keeps the lights on this joint. So thank you very much for folks that do that. Liking, subscribing to your platform of choice.
Anyone within the sound of my voice.
Leaving a review. Just sharing the episodes around. That helps people find the show. And it beats back the algorithm, which is lovely. So thank you for that.
50,000 watts of
power. Long week. So back at it. There's a bunch of stuff I'm announcing next week. I'm not doing it tonight. Sorry/not sorry. But yeah, stay tuned. There's some cool stuff coming up this summer. Excited to be bringing it to ya. Anything else?
Turns sound into electricity.
I don't think so. It's enough, isn't it? Stay safe out there.
Hear me now?
Check you later.
Out on Route 128, dark and lonely. I got my radio on. Can you hear me now? 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 Be in the radio. And that snare drum and that drum roll means we've got a winner. If you're the fifth caller, or any caller at all, welcome to my top 10. I'd like to thank our sponsor. But we haven't got a sponsor. Not if you were the last man on Earth. She was prepared to prove it. This one goes out to a special girl. But there is no special girl. It's the end of radio. The last announcer plays the last record. The last what? Leaves the transmitter. Circles the globe in search of a listener. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Is it really broadcasting if there's no one there to receive? It's the end of radio. As we come to the close of our broadcast day,